Chapter 903. Su Fong was like a weak chicken, trembling as he looked at the collapsing sky and earth. "Senior, let's escape first. You're so scared just like that." The white-eyed woman shot a cold glance at Su Fong, then slapped the air with her left hand. Grabbing Su Fong, the two of them flew into the air towards the large amount of ice and rocks that were falling down. Seeing the huge chunks of material falling, Su Fong almost stopped breathing. However, the white-eyed lady waved her left hand and slapped the air. A few chunks of ice and rocks were crushed into powder. What terrifying strength! The material in this hallucinatory snow ground was harder than low-grade Dao weapons. Even the Wooling Goblin was not as hard as the ice here. However, under the white-eyed lady's contemptuous attack, it was like flowing water, turning the solid material into powder. If they did not have such strength, the two of them would have been crushed into meat paste and buried here. The white-eyed lady did not seem to have shown her true strength, but she had already forcefully grabbed Su Fong and left the abyss. However, some corpses also fell with the collapsing material. Moreover, there was a big goblin's corpse. The big goblin's body was still bound by a shocking seal. Su Fong had some memories of the big goblin. On the way down, he saw an ice abyss where the big goblin was training with more than 10 disciples from the constellation of 9 heavens. He did not expect that these disciples and the big goblin would be crushed to death. After ascending 1,000 feet, the collapsing was not as terrifying as before, but it was still earth-shaking. Not good. A big goblin escaped. Kill it. When they arrived at the ice layer of the huge canyon, the white-eyed lady and Su Fong did not have time to relax. From an ice cave, more than 10 disciples from the constellation of 9 heavens came attacking. Okay. You guys kill each other so that I can escape." Seeing these immortals, Su Fong was secretly amused. It was better to leave this troublesome place. However, he had overestimated the strength of the Star Palace disciples. What kind of big goblin is this? Its demonic chi is not strong, but its aura is so weak. Who would have thought that such an astonishing big goblin would be hidden in the depths of my sect's training grounds? Do we need to report to the sect first? We can't do that. The other big goblin also took the opportunity to escape. They all killed our sect's disciples and hate our sect to the bone. Once they escape, many of our sect's disciples will die at their hands. Kill. While the disciples of Star Palace were charging over, they were also discussing. It seemed very contradictory, because they could sense that the white-eyed woman was not an ordinary monster that was sealed here. This is bad. Su Fong was constantly releasing his power. When he heard the disciples' discussion, he couldn't help but sigh. To come here to kill the white-eyed woman was to die. Furthermore, the white-eyed woman was suppressed here, yet she didn't hate the disciples of the constellation of 9 heavens. I'm in deep shit. I'm really in deep shit now. Su Fong suddenly felt uneasy. If the constellation of 9 heavens knew that he was the one who caused this situation, wouldn't they chop him into 8 pieces? The disciples in star robes charged over. "Big Goblin, before you die, you can still continue to submit to our sect. Just an ant." The white-eyed woman's right hand was still holding Su Fong. Then, she directly flew towards the immortals. Skylight's sword chi. One of the disciples seemed to have extraordinary strength. He took the initiative to attack. The treasure in his hand was even more outstanding than the average low-grade treasure. Chi. In a breath, this person waved his flying sword, and a sword chi slashed towards the white-eyed woman's neck. Pung! Who would have thought? The white-eyed woman did not do anything. When the sword chi was 3 meters away from her, it was suddenly blocked by a white aura. The sword chi was so shaken that it shattered. Pung! Then, in the next second, without waiting for the immortal to react, the white-eyed woman bent her finger and hit the flying sword in the man's hand. With just a touch, the immortal's sword shattered. Puffed. Her fingers grabbed the man's chest. The white-eyed woman slowly raised her left arm and lifted the man up. She revealed an evil smile. "You're here to die. Save. Senior apprentice brother. Set up the formation." The remaining dozen or so disciples at the front were frightened by this scene and were in a state of shock. Only then did they remember to save the others. They all summoned their flying swords and clashed with each other. Then, they pushed the flying swords forward. Puffed. The white-eyed woman's fingers shook, and the disciple she lifted up turned into a corpse. Blood sprayed out from his chest. Then, she grabbed a beating heart. They thought that the woman was going to eat it. However, she gently spread her fingers, and a spirit flame instantly burned the heart. Whoosh! Whoosh! The combined power of the immortals and the immortals formed an oval-shaped sword light that was nearly 300 meters wide. It pressed down on the white-eyed woman. Killing feels so good. I'll use the blood of your constellation of 9 heavens disciples as a sacrifice to help me escape. The white-eyed woman suddenly sped up. She was one step ahead of the sword light. She arrived under the sword light and clapped her fingers. Boom! Boom! Crack! The sword light exploded, and then the flying swords actually shattered one by one. Even so many treasures were unable to block the white-eyed woman's palm. So I really did, inadvertently, let a peerless demon immortal come into being. Seeing this scene, Su Fang's heart turned cold as ice. Puffed, puff. The white-eyed woman once more clawed at the air, and the 10 terrified disciples' heads were separated from their bodies. They died miserably in the woman's water. Killing the disciples of the constellation of 9 heavens feels so good. After suppressing me for 100,000 years, I only killed a few of you. How is that not enough? It's far from enough. The white-eyed woman actually sped up. Su Fang felt like he was flying. Puffed, puffed. Su Fang felt a bit dizzy. Before he could see clearly, he saw that he was surrounded by flesh and blood. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived in a very large ice cave. There were more than 20 disciples of the constellation of 9 heavens here. They had never imagined that the white-eyed woman would suddenly and silently attack them. Before they could react, the white-eyed woman waved her hand and clawed at the immortals, tearing them apart. The air was filled with blood and flesh. The other disciples wanted to escape, but they weren't even 1/10 of the white-eyed woman's speed. No, they weren't even 1/100th of her speed. They didn't fly far before exploding into a bloody mist. Although these disciples of the constellation of 9 heavens weren't experts, they were still virtual immortals and spirit immortals. But in front of the white-eyed woman, they were like mosquitoes or flies. She effortlessly slapped them into meat paste. Slaughter. This is a slaughter. The disciples of a large faction were slaughtered by her, just like that. How much hatred does she have? Su Fang was already frozen. He was numb with fear. Next, the white-eyed woman quickly entered another ice cave. There were only 8 disciples here, and the surroundings were about to collapse. The big goblin that was suppressed here seemed to have escaped. Before the 8 disciples could react, the white-eyed woman's claw penetrated their heads and chests. They were all covered in bloody mist. Whoosh! Just as the white-eyed woman was about to go crazy, Su Fang had been using his perfected ability. Suddenly, he heard the sound of wind. "Senior, be careful!" He quickly shouted to the white-eyed woman. "You're smart." The white-eyed woman turned and looked at the valley that was already collapsing. After revealing a mysterious smile, she and Su Fang saw a figure at the same time. It was traveling through space at lightning speed. An expert. This was an expert. Whoosh! Whoosh! The figure suddenly stopped 100 feet in front of them. It was a woman in a star dress. The woman was about the same age as the white-eyed woman. She was almost 20 years old. She had a good figure and was a little thin. She gave off an otherworldly feeling. Her black hair was draped over her shoulders, and it swayed naturally. Expert from the constellation of 9 heavens. Su Fang secretly glanced at her. He did not dare to make a sound. This woman in a star dress was an expert. Although she was not old, she did not look like an expert who had experienced countless things. Unexpectedly, the woman bowed politely. Junior Buhui is here on Master's orders to greet Senior Dai. You're his disciple? The white-eyed woman looked at the woman in surprise. The woman was still polite. I've been under Master's tutelage for tens of thousands of years. My elder brother was also taken in by Master as an exception. Buhui, what's your surname? My surname is Hen, and my name is Buhui. Hen Buhui, the white-eyed woman's white eyes suddenly surged with intense divine light. Her right hand that was holding Su Fong trembled slightly. The woman bowed again. Master asked me to come. He said that as long as you hear my name, you will understand everything. He hopes that you can resolve everything that happened 100,000 years ago. He hopes that you can forget everything and escape from here. Henbuhue, Henbuhue. The white-eyed woman was flustered as she kept talking to herself. Senior, please leave this snowy place. Our experts will arrive in half an hour. Henbuhue said urgently. Your name is very good. Buhue, out Chang'an. Did you come to apologize for me? No, 100,000 years is nothing. To me, it's just a day and night. Even the endless years cannot overcome that hatred. 100,000 years ago, Out Yin Changhen personally sealed me here in front of countless disciples from the constellation of 9 heavens. He thought that he had fulfilled his promise to me, but he mercilessly broke his promise to me. Suddenly, the white-eyed woman lifted her right hand, and Su Fong was carried on her back. Senior, calm down. Calm down. Su Fong was so frightened that he trembled. I won't kill you. I can't thank you enough. Bring me something from Out Yin Wuhan. His left hand suddenly grabbed out 5 fingerprints. First, it shook off the silver moon immortal armor protecting his body. Then, immortal patterns tore open Su Fong's skin and flesh on his back, leaving behind a line of bloody words. Bang! After being shaken by the white-eyed woman, Su Fong weakly pounced towards Hen Buhue. Hen Buhue dodged and hit a falling rock, almost turning him into a meat patty. The white-eyed woman's aura became faint as she coldly looked at him. All right, Buhue, I won't make things difficult for you. Your master and I have countless years of enmity, not just 100,000 years. Think of a way to keep this brat alive and bring him back to see your master. Let him see what I left for him. Yes, Senior. Junior does not dare to disobey. Hen Buhue calmly replied. I won't make things difficult for you because of your name. If it was someone else, I would have already turned him into minced meat. Whoosh! The white-eyed woman suddenly laughed maniacally. She turned around and disappeared into the collapsing snowy ground. She finally left. Su Fong was seriously injured and did not dare to move. Hen Buhue suddenly stared coldly at Su Fong. With a wave of his hand, an aura enveloped Su Fong, and the two quickly left the canyon. But when they arrived at the top of the canyon and looked at the surrounding illusory, snowy ground, they saw that the ground was shaking. However, Hen Buhue did not bring Su Fong away. In just a moment, hundreds of star-robed immortals appeared, controlling a twisting formation. The majority of them immediately flew into the canyon. Among them, there were 3 people. One was an old man, and the other 2 were middle-aged. They had the other disciples fly in all directions. The 3 of them met with Hen Buhue in the snowstorm. P.S. This is the last day of National Day. I reckon many friends have gone out to play. But these 7 days, these 7 days, I have been writing, drinking, and working through the night. Author's words. This is the last day of National Day. I reckon many friends have gone out to play. But these 7 days, I have been writing, drinking, and working through the night. Chapter 904. Su Fong was like a mortal. When the 3 immortals arrived in front of Hen Buhue, he thought to himself, I have to think of a way to escape and successfully enter the constellation of 9 heavens to cultivate. Greetings, Senior Sister Buhue. In the end, he thought that the 3 of them had a powerful background. He did not expect that in front of Hen Buhue, the 2 middle-aged men and the old man would bow to this young woman together. Hen Buhue released his mortal aura and nodded. The 3 of you, I'm still a step too late. The big goblin that Master sealed here all those years ago has escaped from the snow. The old man in the middle said, when we came, the sex elder also sent us a voice transmission. If we encounter that butterfly demon and cannot take it down, we will first trap it here. Once we find out the reason for the snow's abnormality, the elder will personally come and seal the butterfly demon. I heard that elder's butterfly demon killed countless experts in our sect. It even killed an elder. Thanks to Elder Aotion, we were able to suppress it. If it was a powerful, big goblin, even if it was sealed for 100,000 years, it would still be very powerful. Furthermore, the butterfly demon came from that mysterious spirit world. It's very powerful. The other two middle-aged immortals agreed. Why did the illusory snow ground suddenly change? At that moment, Hen Buhui suddenly glanced at Su Fong, and his gaze returned to normal. When I arrived, a large part of this place had already started to collapse. More than half of the disciples who were training here died. The rest escaped from the canyon. Some big goblins also escaped. This kid, the old man's gaze landed on Su Fong. Only then did he notice that there was an outsider in the constellation of Nine Heavens territory. When Su Fong saw their gazes, he seemed to have understood something. He immediately revealed a surprised smile and hurriedly explained to the three of them. Junior Su Fong happened to pass by the illusory snow ground. In the end, I encountered the big goblin and almost died under the big goblin's power. Fortunately, this senior saved me. An outsider like you came to our territory? A middle-aged man asked the most important question. I'm not an outsider. Su Fong hurriedly used the 9 heavenly stars small phase arts introductory mental cultivation technique and condensed starlight immortal power. How can you know my supreme cultivation technique? The immortals were all stunned. Even Henbu Hui was surprised. I once met a disciple of your palace named Huangfu Huaying in a dangerous place. When I met him, he was on his last breath. Before he died, he condensed a seal of Tao and planted it in my body. He said that he was my guide, so I came to the constellation of 9 heavens to cultivate. Huangfu Huaying seems to be one of Elder Huangfu's people. Let me see. Yes, it's Huangfu Huaying. The old man asked the person beside him not to activate the jade pendant. Instead, he extended his hand towards Su Fong and said, "Condense your Tao seal. We must examine it personally." Yes, he immediately did as he was told. The Jinshi of the constellation of 9 heavens condensed within his body, and the immortal energy within his body quickly transformed into streaks of starlight, forming a Xian Guang in front of the 4 of them. This Xian Guang contained a large number of immortal patterns, mantras, and seals. Furthermore, all of this was deeply connected to Su Fong's Jinshi. Indeed, a middle-aged man was the first to regain his senses. I didn't expect another disciple to die, and an elite one at that. Huangfu Huaying is not an ordinary disciple. Why'd he die? The old man asked sternly. Su Fong answered truthfully. He said that Huangfu Shaoyue had killed Huangfu Huaying. Furthermore, deep within the Tao seal, there was a string of immortal words left behind by Huangfu Huaying, all of which prove this point. The old man sighed. It's a pity that the elite disciple we nurtured died at the hands of one of our own. Su Fong, since you received the Tao seal of our sect's disciple, you are a disciple of our sect. However, you're not an official disciple. According to our sect's rules, you should enter Huangfu to cultivate. Henbu Hui suddenly bowed. Everyone, our proud sky peak is lacking a servant. I think we should let him go to our proud sky peak. The old man shook his head. Senior sister, this matter is not up to us to decide. This involves the internal affairs of the Huangfu clan. Only the clan has the final say. Moreover, the Huangfu elders have always been protective of their own. They will not allow this person to enter Proud Sky Peak. Even if they agree, they will first have to go to Huangfu Peak and explain everything clearly. If they make a firm decision, how will the Huangfu clan understand this matter? Of course, it would be best if he could go to Proud Sky Peak. In the dark, Su Fong felt like he was a product being pulled back and forth by both sides. He was very unhappy, but there was nothing he could do. Everything depended on strength. He could tell that although Henbu Hui had a strong background, the 3 immortals did not seem to be afraid of her. They were just giving her face. I will look for the Hall of Elders regarding this matter. However, I must ensure that he returns to the training hall safely. Goodbye. As if she could see that she could not bring Su Fong away, Henbu Hui could only leave first and disappear into the vast snowy plains. In terms of strength, she was stronger than the 3 immortals. But in terms of status, she entered the sect later than us. but accidentally became Elder Ao Tian's disciple. In terms of seniority, she is stronger than me. Fortunately, Elder Ao Tian was punished 100,000 years ago because of this butterfly demon. He was also stripped of his position as an elder. It's good that she left. I have already informed Elder Huangpu. Now, saving our fellow disciples is more important. The three immortals isolated Su Fong on one side. They spoke in low voices, but every word was clearly heard by Su Fong. After listening, he had some understanding of the big goblin, Hinbu Hue, and Ao Tian. At the same time, he also heard that there was a power struggle within the constellation of 9 heavens. For example, the Huangfu clan. An hour later, some immortals rescued some injured disciples. The 3 immortals took command in midair. Suddenly, the 5 immortals controlled the power of distortion and flew over from the depths of the snowy plains. Huangfu Peak's people are here. The 3 old men noticed the commotion. The old men nodded solemnly at Su Fong, and the latter obediently came forward. Whoosh! The 5 immortals in starry robes flashed over. Each of them was wearing a starry robe or holding an immortal sword. However, there were some obvious differences between their robes. The 5 of them took Su Fong away from the 3 immortals. After exchanging a few pleasantries, the 5 of them activated the power of the formation and began to quickly leave this illusory snowy plains. Within the immortal light, the 5 of them occasionally glanced at Su Fong. Su Fong was like a weak chicken. He did not even dare to breathe loudly. When he looked at his surroundings, he was actually flying through the depths of the void. Then, he saw a huge object floating in the void where nebulas and impurities were fused. Its appearance was like a gray ingot. It also emitted a shocking aura of the world. That was definitely the constellation of 9 heavens. According to legend, the Tao right of the constellation of 9 heavens was located in an ancient ruin in a distant space-time. This material plane that looked like an ingot should be that ancient ruin. Soon, they were high up in the sky. Looking from afar, the surroundings of the 9 heaven star palace gave off a desolate feeling. However, there was a white barrier that clearly covered the interior. With Su Fongda's complete vision, he could see that within the barrier was a large area of forests, long rivers, and mountain ranges. Among the many mountain peaks, there were 9 that were particularly majestic. Although there was no special shape, the towering peaks still shook the heavens. What an abundant, immortal chi. The aura of the world is also very shocking. Cultivating here will make it easier for cultivators to obtain world energy. In the future, it will be of great help to my cultivation of world fragments. After flying over the desolate mountain ridge, they entered the barrier. It was a completely different world. The outside was desolate, while the inside was filled with mountains and rivers. Without waiting for Su Fong to see more, the 5 brought him into a passage. In the blink of an eye, they passed through several mountain peaks and appeared in the sky above one of the 9 mountain peaks. They quickly floated towards the palace on the highest peak. In the blink of an eye, Su Fong followed the 5 of them to the plaza in front of the largest palace. Then, over 100 immortals walked out from the palace. Among them, only 20 or so came to the plaza. These people's cultivation bases were all as strong as the 3 immortals from before. There were even a few middle-aged people whose auras Su Fong couldn't sense. Your Su Fong, Huangfu Huang was really killed by Huangfu Feiyue. After everyone stopped, an immortal in his 60s exuded an oppressive aura. Bang bang. The pressure caused Su Fong to kneel on the ground. I have no choice but to lower my head. Su Fong didn't struggle, but his heart was filled with displeasure. In front of everyone, Su Fong recounted how he had encountered Huangfu Huaying. He even told them that he had encountered a devil expert, Brother Duan. After everyone heard this, they fell silent. Suddenly, many people followed the old man and looked at a middle-aged man. This middle-aged man's figure wasn't shocking. He had an aquiline nose and a black mole on his thick eyebrows. He looked at everyone. Huangfu Feiyue is my disciple. Since everyone feels that this child's words are true, then we should punish him according to the sect's rules or clan's rules. Regardless of whether it's the rules of the sect or the clan, Huang Fu Feiyue's only path to death is death. At this moment, another middle-aged man spoke from the other side. He had vertical hair on his temples, and his words were extremely cold. Huang Fu Duan, who had a black mole on his forehead, bowed to the middle-aged man. Brother Yanhai, don't worry. Huaying is your only son, as well as my nephew. Since it was Huang Fu Feiyue, that unfilial bastard, who killed him as his master, I will definitely execute him in front of everyone. Huang Fu Duan, the old man from before, clearly had a higher status than everyone else. After the two middle-aged men finished speaking, he looked at Huang Fu Duan. In the clan, no matter if you're a direct descendant or a concubine, once you attack a member of the clan, you must be punished. My Huang Fu bloodline only managed to obtain one of the 9 peaks after countless years of development. Following the rules is the bottom line. Without a bottom line, the clan will not be able to continue for long. Immediately capture Huang Fu Feiyue. I definitely won't be merciful. I'll have to trouble law enforcers to capture this person so that I can give Brother Yanhai an explanation. Huang Fu Duan bowed to the middle-aged man called Huang Fu Yanhai. Someone looked at Su Fong. Then this child. There are some things that I have to clarify in person. Since he received my son's inheritance, he naturally has to cultivate under me. Huang Fu Yanhai glanced at Su Fong fiercely and became even more overbearing. Then he said to Su Fong in front of everyone, "You're lucky to have met my son and joined Star Palace. Seeing that you received my son's guidance and the inheritance seal, you can no longer use the surname Su. From now on, you'll use my surname. You'll be called Huang Fu Shaoying." Huang Fu Shaoying. Without allowing Su Fong to say no, he was actually changed to the surname Yi. From now on, in the constellation of 9 heavens, he was called Huang Fu Shaoying, and not Su Fong. At that moment, someone looked at Huang Fu Yanhai. However, I just heard that Ao Tian Peak also wants this person to be an odd job worker. Ao Tian Peak is already a thing of the past. I heard that Ao Tian Chonghen is about to come out of seclusion. However, he was stripped of his position as an elder 100,000 years ago. When he comes out, his seniority is only higher than ours. How can he be above us? Ha, you're right. Ao Tian Peak was one of the 9 great dojos 100,000 years ago. At that time, they didn't have a single disciple. Now, they're not even elders anymore. They only have 2 disciples. Who knows? Maybe Ao Tian Peak will also change their surname and be replaced by a new elder. Many Huang Fu clan immortals snorted disdainfully at Ao Tian Peak in front of everyone. They treated it as a joke. The author's words. After adjusting my state of mind and returning to my normal pace of work, I also want to find the feeling of writing a book. I can only say that it's very tiring. Most of these disciples were on duty around the Repentance Cave. Suddenly, Huang Fu Yunhai led 5 young Huang Fu disciples and brought Su Fong to the layers of cliffs behind the Fuzin Cave. One of the young immortals suddenly slapped Su Fong's back, forcing him to kneel on the ground. Being forced to kneel twice in one day was a huge humiliation that Su Fong had never experienced in his 100 years of cultivation. He did not care about this. The most important thing right now was what Huang Fu Yanhai wanted to do to him. That bad feeling was getting stronger and stronger. Huang Fu Shaoying, since you are a disciple of my Huang Fu Peak, my words are an imperial edict. You have to listen. Huang Fu Yanhai finally looked at Su Fong seriously and condescendingly. Yes. For Su Fong, he was unable to accept this. He had come all the way here to bring the news of Huang Fu Huaying's death to the Huang Fu clan, but he had ended up like this. Huang Fu Yanhai sneered. Before my son was killed, he stole a high-grade Dao artifact from Huang Fu Shaoyue. Don't tell me you don't have it. Huang Fu Huaying stole the ghost tooth 4-sided disc from Huang Fu Shaoyue. Su Fong's body trembled. In his subconscious, it seemed that Huang Fu Huaying was a good person. Only now did he realize how naive he was. The ghost tooth 4-sided disc was obtained by Huang Fu Shaoyue first. Then Huang Fu Huaying stole it. In the end, he was not as strong as Huang Fu Shaoyue and died. This fact was like a knife cutting into his heart. Su Fong replied honestly, "Yes, that treasure is indeed in my hands. Still not taking it out? But I've already fused with it." "What?" Huang Fu Yinhai was so angry that thunder roared. Because before Huang Fu Huaying died, he said he was going to give the treasure to me as a gift. So I fused with it. So what? Now that my lord wants it, why don't you spit it out? What is this? Everything that young Master Huaying has belongs to my lord. The young men took turns to oppress Su Fong with fierce expressions. A wise man knows when to retreat. Give it to him. At this moment, Green Feather King's urgent voice came from Xianhuang, Six Paths Pagoda. Su Fong secretly clenched his teeth. He suddenly felt like he was back on Flying Immortal Island, when Prince Shui stripped him of his magic treasure in front of 100,000 disciples. This was the greatest humiliation of his life. Okay. In any case, this magic treasure is useless in my hands. After hesitating for 3 breaths, under the pressure of the surrounding people, he raised his hand. In the end, Su Fong raised his right arm and pointed out a few mystic rays with his left hand. A round will suddenly flew out of his right arm. It turned out that the ghost tooth 4-sided disc was a high-grade Dao artifact, not a low-grade magic treasure. Swoosh! The ghost tooth 4-sided disc floated in front of them. Su Fong condensed his blood qi in Xianguang. He seemed to be trembling. A high-grade Dao artifact really is not bad. For such a Dao artifact, you caused my son to die. How can it fall into the hands of someone like Huang Fu Duan? Huang Fu Yinhai revealed a deep, complacent smile. Huang Fu Duan, I know you'll think of a way to let Huang Fu Xiaoyue escape, but the enmity of my son's death, I'll take it from you and Huang Fu Xiaoyue. I'll use this Ghost Fong quadrangular wheel to cut you into pieces again and again as a sacrifice to my son's soul in heaven. Bang! His left hand suddenly struck Su Fong's chest. Su Fong was forced back 3 steps, constantly vomiting blood. He said unwillingly, "If I let Huang Fu Yinhai do it, I'll definitely die here. If that's the case, I might as well strip off my magic treasure and be heavily injured. That's 100 times better than losing my life." Huang Fu shouting. Huang Fu Yinhai grabbed the ghost tooth 4-sided disc and looked down at Su Fong. "Do you know why I gave you the name Xiaoying? It's because my son's name is Huang Fu Huaying. You can use his legacy to live. At least you have my son's aura on you. You can pay tribute to my son's soul in heaven. Senior, how should we deal with this kid in the future?" The young Huang Fu disciples asked politely. "Let him stay here to guard the hidden sin cave." After saying this, Huang Fu Yunhai led the 4 youths away. Leaving behind one of the youths to watch them leave, he domineeringly told Su Fong to stand up. "My name is Huang Fu Hao. I'm one of the people in charge of this hidden tiger valley. In the future, you will listen to me. Otherwise, you will live a life worse than death in this hidden sin cave." How could the latter dare to say no? Huang Fu Hao brought Su Fong to the hidden sin cave. A few disciples hurried to welcome them. He introduced the hidden sin cave to Su Fong. "There are tens of thousands of disciples here who have committed crimes in our Huang Fu Peak. How many years they have been in here is still up to us Huang Fu people." As he spoke, he brought Su Fong into the hidden sin cave. The difference between heaven and earth was like heaven and earth. Outside the hidden sin cave was a place filled with spiritual qi. But inside the cave, there was no spiritual qi at all. It was probably some kind of formation set up by an expert. After entering one li, there were many prison caves in the huge cavern. Each prison cave had one or several disciples locked inside. Although it was called a prison, the prison caves were free. But at the exit, there was a seal. This seal was the real prison that prevented these disciples from leaving. Only the disciples on duty could control the seal to enter and exit the prison. You will stay in the hidden sin cave from now on. You don't have to patrol. You can go to the hidden tiger valley, but you can't leave the valley. I'm thinking for you. If you publicly prove that it was Huang Fu Xiaoyue who killed Huang Fu Huaying, will Xiaoyue's master, Huang Fu Duan, let you go? Huang Fu Duan's position is very high. He's already in the upper echelons of the clan. Although the hidden tiger valley is not under his control, he will still think of ways to silence you. If anything happens to you, he will capture Huangfu Shaoyue in the future. Without a witness, he probably won't be able to kill Shaoyue. From now on, you will be a temporary disciple, Huangfu Shaoyue. This is your identity token. As for cultivation, I will look for you when I'm in a good mood. Your current status is an odd job disciple. Even if you take my surname, Huangfu, you have to follow the rules and cultivate step by step. There are many caves inside and outside the hidden Sin Cave. Find a place to stay. After Huangfu Hao shouted coldly with a haughty attitude, he turned around and swaggered out of sin-repelling cave under the support of some disciples. Cough, cough, he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. He looked around and saw that it was a prison cave. There was no spiritual energy around, so he left the hidden Sin Cave. There were cliffs and forests nearby, and there were many caves. Some of the caves were occupied, but the other caves were empty. He found a cave that was filled with spider webs and wild grass. He released the illusory fire cloud and burned everything. The cave was very spacious. After casting a barrier at the cave entrance, he almost fainted when he sat down. Not only was it painful to peel off your own treasures, it was also self-harming. Huangfu Yanhai, I will remember this. He quickly consumed an immortal pill and began to recover. Although he was heavily injured, he was confident that he could recover in a short period of time. The scene of him encountering Huangfu Huaying suddenly appeared in his mind. He suddenly punched out and shattered a nearby stone stool. I did not expect that my Su Fong would meet such an unworthy person. When I saw Huangfu Huaying on the verge of death, I let my guard down and came to the constellation of 9 heavens. In the end, I was like a lamb in a tiger's den. He probably planned all of this and told Huangfu Yanhai. He was just waiting for me to come to the astral palace and hand over the ghost tooth square wheel. What a Huangfu Huaying! This humiliation was the most unforgettable thing in the outside world. It was only now that he knew what had happened. It seemed to be destined, but in the end, he fell into Huangfu Huaying's trap. He stopped thinking about this. On one hand, he recovered from his injuries. On the other hand, he took out his identity token and gradually understood the constellation of 9 heavens. The constellation of 9 heavens had a total of 9 dojos. Proud Sky Peak and Huangfu Peak were 2 of them. However, Proud Sky Peak had never had any disciples, while Huangfu Peak had close to 100,000 disciples. The power of an elder here was too shocking. Once one became an elder, they could own a huge mountain dojo. Of course, there were 2 ways for an elder to own a mountain dojo. The first was to be conferred by the Supreme Astral Palace Master. The other way was for an elder to seize the mountain through other elders. Proud Sky Peak's previous elder, Proud Sky Chonghen, was a legend. He challenged the previous generation of Proud Sky Peak's supreme elder and took over Proud Sky Peak. He also drove away all the disciples and sat alone on a huge dojo. He could be considered a general without an army. Huangfu Peak also had records of the Huangfu Peak's most powerful elder. Huangfu Peak's elder had also forcefully taken over Huangfu Peak's huge dojo from other elders through a challenge. He had become one of the 9 most powerful elders in the constellation of 9 heavens. This is the reason why the constellation of 9 heavens is so famous in the outside world. The disciples can obtain everything through strength. This brings pressure and motivation to every disciple. This is why the entire force is able to continuously produce core disciples in the long river of history. Within the cave, Su Fong was in shock for a long time. Chapter 906. Of course, the constellation of 9 heavens was not just what was recorded on the jade pendant. As for what it looked like, one would only be qualified to know when one became a peerless martial artist. Su Fong had not been cultivating for long when a few disciples called him to clean up the fallen rocks in the hidden Sin Cave. It was said that a landslide had happened there not long ago. Servant disciples. They were just slaves, servants, and laborers. Cultivation was secondary. It was too difficult to make a name for oneself in the hidden Tiger Valley. Opportunities were hard to come by. Luckily, immortals had plenty of stamina. After being tired for a while, they could condense their aura and replenish their energy. Huangfu Hao would also call Su Fong to see him from time to time. It was not a big deal. He just wanted to show the disciples how impressive he was in the Hidden Tiger Valley. Gradually, a year passed. During this period, he had spent half of his time doing all kinds of chores. He had a certain understanding of the Hidden Tiger Valley, Huangfu Peak, and the other dojos. Although Huangfu Hao did not impart the Nine Heavens Astral Palace mental cultivation technique to Su Fong was able to secretly cultivate in the tiger subduing valley with the power of the world as the core. The aura in the depths of his yang meridian was almost filled with starlight. TSK. Inside the cave, not only had his injuries healed, but his strength had also increased. He had absorbed the essence of the constellation of Nine Heavens dojos and condensed a large amount of world immortal power in his body. Su Fong had reached the peak of the first Tao essence realm. At that moment, tribulation aura suddenly exploded from his aura and skin. Following that, just as Su Fong opened his eyes, his skin started to tear. His body started to roar as if he was being attacked by the power of ascension. He was indeed breaking through. The tribulation aura engulfed him, and impurities surged out of his body. It was different from a small world. Even the impurities contained immortal light. Was this an immortal? 2 Tao essence realm. 2 Tao marks have appeared in my golden core, origin, and divine aperture. That's right. So what if I'm a servant disciple? The constellation of Nine Heavens dojos are the same. They all have immortal aura and world aura that can make me stronger. It's just nice that I can stay here and try to break through a few levels as soon as possible. Looking at his fleshly body that had nearly lost all of its skin and was left with only flesh and blood, the tribulation energy burned. Despite the pain, Su Fong smiled. After about half a day, the tribulation aura finally dissipated, leaving behind some smelly impurities in the placenta, which was an even stronger aura than before. Virtual immortal realm. Tao marks formed in the golden core, origin, and the divine aperture, which had a great influence on cultivation. When his body calmed down, he hurriedly swallowed an immortal pill. Moreover, he found that the number of immortal pills he had collected was decreasing. It would not take long. Of course, the immortal pills were not consumed by him alone. Instead, they were consumed by countless junior commanders. It was equivalent to feeding tens of thousands of mouths. At the very least, he would consume tens of thousands of immortal essence pills every year. The changes in my hearing and eyesight are too obvious. From this cave, I can sense all the movements in Tiger's subduing valley. However, compared to the small world, it is still too insignificant. When will I be able to sense the constellation of Nine Heavens and the entire dojo in the ruins? That will be considered extraordinary. Now that his fleshly body had transformed, Su Fong had begun to cultivate a variety of energy arts. Su Fong could clearly sense the energy of an imperial emperor inside of him, especially the fleshly embryo god armor. It was like a suit of golden armor that completely covered his fleshly body. By combining the true enlightenment of Misty with the Nine Heavens Stars minor phase incantation, as well as the world fragment, my cultivation speed in the constellation of Nine Heavens is now 10 times higher than that of ordinary disciples. The Nine Heavens Stars minor phase incantation is already a powerful technique in the greater world. And there is also the mysterious true enlightenment of Misty. Most importantly, the world fragment can absorb the power of any world. Haha. In the future, when I combine the true enlightenment of Misty with my personal domain, I'll be able to create an illusory domain that is 30 meters wide. His cultivation continued. The changes were getting more and more shocking. This feeling was similar to when he first entered the Sky Gate Prefecture, where he cultivated and stepped into the world of cultivation. It was a strange and refreshing feeling. Back when he had first entered Tianmen province, he had started out as an ordinary disciple, cleaning the immortal caves of demon monsters and serving as an attendant for cultivators. In the end, when he had entered the constellation of Nine Heavens, it had been the same. Therefore, when he was in the greater world, he had a feeling that he had suddenly entered the immortal sect to cultivate and started from immortal again. After a few days, Huangfu Hao was finally going to impart to Su Feng's cultivation technique. In the end, it was not the nine heavens stars minor phase incantation, but a corresponding body-tempering cultivation technique. In a constellation of nine heavens, body tempering was also very important. Every disciple had to use a special kind of stone that contained the power of formation. When they cultivated, they had to absorb the special aura within the stone, tempering the physical body. After a long time, through grinding with the stone, the menial disciples' meridians would gradually precipitate the power of the stars. It could also be considered a cleansing of the marrow and a foundation. This was not Huangfu Hao deliberately making things difficult for Su Feng. Instead, he was following the rules and taking things step by step. Of course, he was deliberately making things difficult for Su Feng. Some menial disciples, even if they obtained the star gem and the true nine heavens stars minor phase incantation, would naturally improve faster than the body-tempering disciples. However, Huangfu Hao did not know that Su Feng's physical body had already surpassed everything. However, obtaining the star gem was also a good thing. When he returned to the cave, he activated the gem. Through the gem, he absorbed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, and his speed became faster. Just like that, half a year passed in a hurry. Late at night, Su Feng was still cultivating in the cave. Swoosh, outside the cave, an afterimage landed at the entrance of the cave. The afterimage was somewhat illusory. It seemed to be a man. It should not be the main body. He paused for a moment and silently entered the cave with one step. He glanced at Su Feng, who was hovering in the cave and absorbing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. He was obviously surprised. For a full hour, the illusory figure did not move at all. Until he suddenly praised, "Your talent. No wonder the butterfly monster did not kill you." "Who is it?" Su Feng, who was cultivating, was so shocked that he jumped up and used his great perfection ability to look around. Someone actually came to the cave. How dangerous was that? However, when he used his great perfection ability, he could not see anything unusual. His body and mind tensed up until he met a powerful person. "You don't have to be so wary of me." The illusory figure suddenly waved his hand, and a lifelike figure appeared at the entrance. It was a man in plain robes. He was about 30 years old, and his hair was tied up in a bun. He was very illusory and did not have any domineering aura. In the constellation of nine heavens, it was Su Feng's first time seeing a cultivator who was not wearing a robe. He was so plain and ordinary. "You are?" Su Feng landed, cupped his fists, and bowed. The man stood with his hands behind his back. Although he was plain, it was as if he was standing at the peak of a mountain. "You broke into the place where I sealed and let the butterfly monster go. You still don't know who I am." Out Hien Chang'en. Su Feng could not help but be shocked. "You." The man's gaze suddenly froze. "With such talent, you are qualified to become my third disciple. I, Out Yin Chang'en, am not willing to accept disciples. Out Yin Peak has been alone for many years and only has 2 disciples. Su Feng, I will take you to Out Yin Peak. Go to Out Yin Peak." Zheng Zheng looked at Out Yin Chang'en. This was an elder who was invincible 100,000 years ago. "Why do you still need to think about it?" "Elder, I need to think about it." At this moment, Su Feng was facing a legendary figure. He had such a good opportunity, but he was actually silent. After half an incense stick's worth of time, Su Feng rejected the offer. "Thank you for your consideration, Elder, but I still won't go to Out Yin Peak. I remember Buhuwei saying that you really wanted to come to Out Yin Peak. That was in the illusory snow domain. If Senior had taken me to Out Yin Peak at that time, I would have definitely entered Out Yin Peak to cultivate. Senior is an elder, and your name shakes the entire Dao right. To be able to cultivate in Out Yin Peak is my fortune. Why are you not willing now? Disciple is currently cultivating in Huangfu Peak. If I suddenly leave, I will offend many people. In the future, it will be difficult for me to establish myself in the constellation of 9 heavens. With me here, who dares to touch you? It's easy to dodge a spear in the open, but hard to dodge a stab in the dark." Su Feng felt the unexpected and domineering aura from Out Yin Chang'en's aura. He bowed again. Elder and I are like mortals and gods. Elder, you are high and mighty. Naturally, no one can blaspheme you. To be able to become Elder's disciple is naturally the dream of every disciple. However, I have already become a disciple of Huangfu Peak. If I really go to Outyin Peak, even if I have Elder's protection on the surface, I can't just stay in Outyin Peak all the time and not come out. Even if I go out, I can't just go to Outyin Peak with Senior. I am just an ordinary disciple. For now, I just want to stay alive. I really forgot about that. Outyin Changhen was lost in thought for a long time after hearing this. After a long time, Su Fong bowed again. Outyin Changhen nodded. You're just a new disciple. I didn't expect you to have such a pair of eyes. You can see the situation in the constellation of 9 heavens so clearly. For someone like you, even if you're just a servant disciple, your brilliance won't be overshadowed. You're meticulous, cautious, and thorough. There are countless disciples in this Taoist temple, but only the higher-ups can compare to you. Disciple is only thinking about how to stay alive, replied Su Fong sincerely. Could it be that your Tao heart is strong enough to insist on your own way of thinking? I won't force you. I once saw someone take pity on a newborn demonic beast and bring it back to the sect to raise it in captivity. Later, it grew into a demonic immortal in the Taoist temple. It was very powerful, but when that cultivator went out to train, it died tragically at the hands of several demonic beasts that were weaker than it. Forget it. You helped me this time. You entered the seal because you wanted to get the 3 profound sword talismans I left behind all those years ago. Since we're fated to meet, I'll give you 3 profound sword talismans. They'll help you grow faster within 100 years. I don't know if that's pulling up a seedling to help it grow. Everything depends on how the user uses it. Only then can its true value be seen. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. After Outyin Changhen finished speaking, he made a grabbing motion in the air. 3 flying swords without the slightest aura quickly condensed and floated around Su Fong. Good treasures. Many thanks, Senior. Junior has this thing on my back. Su Fong hadn't expected Outyin Changhen to give him such a good treasure. He excitedly bowed, then turned to the side to show his back. Just now, I sense that, young man, you should work hard. The constellation of the 9 heavens is famous in countless major worlds. Although I'm an elder, I must also work hard to become the strongest disciple of the constellation of the 9 heavens. Whoosh! Outyin Changhen suddenly transformed into a blazing flame. In an instant, he turned into a human-shaped pile of ashes that scattered into the air. All that was left was Su Fong, who was standing there motionlessly like a wooden stake. In the blink of an eye, in a huge mountain range far away from Huangfu Peak, a lonely figure stood on a cliff in the cold wind. It was Outyin Changhen. This was his true body. He stared into the distance. Dai Yi, we knew each other, and we fell in love. It was fated to be an ill-fated relationship. Although I don't regret it, after 100,000 years, we no longer have anything to do with each other. You've escaped from the snow. Master, at this time, Henbu Hui stepped on the void and bowed to Outyin Changhen. Chapter 907. Why don't I see that brat? Henbu Hui bowed and looked around. Her brows furrowed, and a cold aura emanated from her. Ao Tian Zhanghen stood with his hands behind his back. He's unwilling to come to Ao Tian Peak. What? Henbu Hui was so shocked that she almost lost her balance. She felt like she was about to fall into a bottomless abyss. She regained her composure and said in disbelief, could it be that someone from Huangfu Peak is trying to stop him? That's too much. Master is no longer an elder. That's not the reason. It's Su Fong himself who's unwilling. He's unwilling. Yes. Doesn't he know how strong you are, Master? When he broke into the seal in the snow, you had already noticed and informed me. If not, Bu Hui, there are 2 kinds of people in this world. The first kind is going with the flow, and the second kind is going against the flow. Most people are going with the flow, but there are some who dare to go against the flow. Back then, I also went against the flow to obtain this Ao Tian Peak. However, because I went against the flow, I was punished for 100,000 years. Master, you're praising a mere virtual immortal realm ain't too much. Henbu Hui suddenly felt a little jealous when she saw her respected master praising someone so much. Just you wait. Within 100 years, this brat's name will spread far and wide. Oh right, if you meet him outside in the future, you have to help him secretly. Don't let Bu Hui do the same. Yes, I'll inform elder brother. Bu Hui is about to enter the next tribulation. Once you pass the tribulation, you'll become a true expert in the constellation of 9 heavens. I'm glad that you siblings did not disappoint me. We'll definitely fight for Master's glory. Yes. The master and disciple hovered in midair and looked at the 3 suns that were slowly rising in the sky. Huangfu Peak, hidden Tiger Valley. Good treasure. Inside the cave, Su Fong first formed several layers of seals at the entrance of the cave. This way, he could protect the cave as much as possible. Summoning 3 Xian sword talismans that didn't have any aura, Su Fong was very excited. He had sealed the abyss in the snowy lands and spent so much effort to obtain it. Yet, he had obtained it so easily in the constellation of 9 heavens. It seemed that this was what was called luck. It's just that A.O. Tianzhonghen's words are so strange. Why would he thank me for intruding into the sealed area? He has a special relationship with the big goblin, Dai Yi. Perhaps that's why he was willing to give me 3 Xian sword talismans? Now, I don't have to worry about other resources. In terms of cultivation, do you have these 3 Xian sword talismans? In addition to the world fragment, the 9 Yang 9 transformations, and the ethereal quintessence, I should be able to continuously break through. The only thing I need to worry about is the elixirs and how to get rid of my status as a servant. Without freedom, I can't get elixirs and other resources. I can't contact Wang Yuehai in secret and learn about Huo 1 and 7 stars movements. Holding 3 Xian sword talismans, Su Fong's body and mind were originally very relaxed, but now there was a big rock pressing down on him. Now, he had to discard all distracting thoughts. If he did not have the chance to create opportunities, he had to focus on his cultivation and strive to step into the essence immortal 3 Dao realm as soon as possible. Just like that, time flew by in silence. One day at noon, he was suddenly called out by a few disciples. When he arrived in front of the repentance cave, there were actually close to 1,000 disciples this time. After being here for so many years, this was the first time Su Fong saw so many disciples. Huangfu Hao and a dozen Huangfu disciples, as well as a few other high-ranking disciples with different surnames, also strode over. In front of everyone, Huangfu Hao coldly swept his gaze over them. Third young master went out to train and brought back a powerful demonic beast. That demonic beast actually swallowed third young master's Dharma treasure. Now, he needs some people to go over and help. Those who are big come out. When he said this, the close to 1,000 disciples showed panic and uneasiness. Without thinking, they knew that this was not a good job. After a while, no one took the initiative to step forward. You. It seemed that although the Huangfu clan was in charge here, most of them were still disciples with different surnames. There were also higher-ups with different surnames who were in charge. The Huangfu clan did not dare to really be the emperor here. They could do whatever they wanted. Huangfu Hao was very angry. The other disciples of the Huangfu clan immediately called out a burly servant disciple one by one. Even so, those people were still hesitant. I'm willing to go. Suddenly, a cultivator who took the initiative to step forward attracted everyone's attention. Su Fong. He bowed to Huangfu Hao and the others. I'm willing to go. The sect's matters are my matters. I'm willing to do my best for the sect. Good. Huangfu Hao was very proud and praised Su Fongda in front of everyone. In the end, not many people were willing to step forward. In the end, they forcefully pulled a dozen big disciples and flew out of Repentance Tiger Valley under the lead of the Huangfu disciples. When they saw the main peak of Huangfu, everyone flew to a side peak. There were not many palaces on the side peak. It seemed that only the experts of the Huangfu clan could enjoy such an environment. Everyone entered the peak and came to the peak behind the palaces. A cave attracted everyone's attention because of the demonic chi coming out of the cave. From time to time, there would be rumbling sounds coming from the cave. Woo! One by one, the disciples began to tremble. When they landed in front of the cave, Huangfu Hao asked everyone to wait outside while he and a few Huangfu disciples entered. Su Fang immediately pricked up his ears. Soon, he heard a monster screaming inside. Then, a dozen cultivators were torturing the monster. Then, he heard Huangfu Hao's voice. Young master, it's just a big goblin. It's swallowed your treasure. Kill it, skin it, and pull out its tendons. You could take it out. Why are you still angry with it? How arrogant. A boy with a childish voice was very dissatisfied. It said that I can't do anything to it. I'm a baby snoring. How can I not deal with a big goblin? It's easy to kill it, but I don't believe that I can't do anything to this beast. Young master, burn it to death. The childish person was even more furious. So it's a child. Su Fang retracted his great perfection ability and made up his mind. This is a rare opportunity. It's not something that you wait for. It's something that you create yourself. Huangfu Hao is so respectful to the young master. He must have a great background. Plus, he's a child. If I can stay by his side, won't I have another layer of protection? It'll be of great help to my cultivation. The premise was that he had to help him deal with the big goblin and take out the treasure. He also had to coax this baby snoring. After waiting for a while, the dozen or so tired disciples left the cave. Now, it was the turn of Su Fang's dozen or so ordinary disciples. As soon as they stepped into the cave, a shocking demonic aura that contained poisonous gas rushed towards them. It was not simple. This demonic aura that contained poisonous gas could corrode one's aura. It formed an invisible, devouring, and oppressive force. More than 10 feet in, they arrived at an oval-shaped cave. Inside, there were ceiling chains that bound a monster covered in sesame-shaped scales. This monster was not an ordinary demonic immortal. It looked like it had yet to shed its shell and take human form. However, its demonic aura was shocking, and its divine power was boundless. It should have a great background. In front of the big goblin, there was a 14 or 15-year-old child floating. The child was also wearing a starry robe. The difference was that his starry robe had some golden nebulae, and he had a noble aura. At first glance, one could tell that his identity was very different. Baby snoring. It was indeed a child. Baby snoring turned around, revealing a face as white as paper and a childish appearance. It angrily pointed at the crowd and said, "Activate your magical treasures and skin this monster, but don't kill it. Rustle, rustle, rustle." This was the young master of the Huang clan. The dozen or so ordinary disciples had never seen such a big figure before. They also knew that this young master was the most difficult to provoke. They summoned their treasures one by one. Su Fang also took out his starry daylight sword. From the corner of his eye, he saw that the dozen or so treasures around him were very ordinary. Regardless of whether they were 30 or 20, such low-grade treasures would not be able to kill the big goblin. This was probably what Baby Snoring had expected. The crowd did not hesitate to shoot out their treasures and began to attack the monster. It was really a clanging sound. The monster's leather armor was very sturdy. It was a low-grade treasure, and it felt like the undying turtle's shell. It was a very rare and sturdy existence. The leather armor and the treasures were like metal. When they collided, there was a large amount of shocking and deafening sound waves. The big goblin was unharmed, but Su Fang and the others began to vomit blood from the vibrations. The stalemate lasted for a few hours. Useless, really useless. A bunch of good-for-nothings. Scram as far as you can. Still, they could not do anything to the big goblin. Baby Snoring was infuriated. The dozen or so disciples were also dejected. This was called an arduous and unrewarding task. At this moment, everyone left. Su Fang suddenly turned around and jogged to Baby Snoring. "I have a way to deal with this big goblin. Make it spit out the treasures. No matter how much it ate, it has to spit them out." Oh, Baby Snoring was suddenly energized. When he landed on the ground, it was as if he saw a life-saving straw. "You really have a way." Su Fang nodded repeatedly. "I really do have a way. However, I still need to spend some time to test it out. But I'm confident that I can make it spit out the treasures after some time." "Hee hee, I told you." Those young masters said that I have no way to take back the treasures from living monsters. I want to show them how powerful I am. Baby snoring suddenly grabbed Su Fang's collar. If you can't take them out, I won't let you go. Young master, you can't kill this person. You can't kill him for now. Huang Fu Hao suddenly rushed over. It's none of your business. Why is there someone that I can't kill? This person is related to Huang Fu Huaying's death. The higher-ups want him alive. We'll consider killing him after we capture Huang Fu Shaoyue. Huang Fu Huaying, Huang Fu Shaoyue. Baby snoring unhappily shouted, I don't care so much. This guy can stay here for now. Nothing will happen to him with me. Young master, Huang Fu Hao's face was unsightly. Scram! Yes, yes. In the end, baby snoring roared. Huang Fu Hao was so scared that he wet his pants and crawled away. Su Fang hurriedly said, Young master, give me 6 days. I'll make it obedient and obedient. Don't brag. In the past, many disciples tried to suck up to me, but none of them were capable. I'll give you 6 days. Don't you dare leave the cave for 6 days. Baby snoring seemed to be in a bad mood. He pouted and left. However, once he left the cave, he completely sealed it. Su Fang couldn't leave. This baby snoring looks like a spoiled brat, but he's quite smart. He's not an idiot. Luckily, he's not scheming. That makes him easy to deal with. Su Fang regained his indifferent aura and strode to the front of the monster. He took a closer look at the monster. It was more than 10 feet tall, and its whole body was dark gray. It was impossible to find this monster in the stone forest. At this moment, the monster spoke. Its blood-red, lantern-like eyes seemed to be hanging in front of Su Fang. Human, don't even think about taking the treasure out of my body. I can't kill humans, but I won't submit to humans either. Hee, that's not up to you. Since I'm here, you'd better behave yourself. Su Fang sat on the side. He had nothing to do and was leisurely sizing up the big goblin. He didn't know why he was so confident that he could subdue this big goblin. Chapter 908. After waiting for a while, Su Fang was actually waiting for the ears outside the cave. Some of the disciples were probably watching the show and listening to the commotion. Su Fang did not want these people to know that he had some tricks up his sleeve. After a full day and night, there was no movement outside. Kid, didn't you want to teach me a lesson? Come and scratch my itch. Su Fang suddenly stood up. Before he could make a move, the monster shouted at Su Fang under the chains and spat out demonic poisonous gas. It was arrogant. Others can't do anything to you because they haven't killed you yet. You don't know what's good for you. You only know how powerful you are when you're cut by others. Su Fang came in front of the big goblin and gathered a special demonic aura in his palm. The big goblin looked at this change in shock. You, why do you have demonic aura? This is why I'm here. It's very easy to deal with you. Don't think that humans can't bear to kill you. Supreme demonic poison. The demonic aura rose, and a blood-colored black, poisonous gas suddenly emerged from it. This poisonous gas was not ordinary. Under the protection of the demonic aura, it whizzed towards the monster's head. The big goblin was unable to attack. It was wearing leather armor and was living a leisurely life. But now it was afraid. Seeing the black poisonous gas coming towards it, it had a bad feeling. Under the suppression of the sealing chains, it began to gather its demonic aura and wanted to use the barrier to resist. But Baby Snoring's methods were not ordinary. He was not a simple young master or young master. Although he was a child, he had probably cultivated for a long time. He definitely had the ability to suppress a big goblin. Behave. Let me see if your demonic poison is stronger or if my poison is stronger. The black poison entered the monster's nostrils, eyes, and ears. Su Fang smiled and waited. He was very confident in using poison. This poison was not his, nor was it the 5 poisons true chi. It came from the blood wraith true demon. The blood ghost true demon was a poisonous monster in the small world, and after coming to this world, it had devoured all kinds of energy, including the power of demonic experts. It could only be considered a somewhat special big goblin. The blood wraith true demon's venom immediately suppressed and devoured the big goblin's poisonous gas and demonic aura, pouring into the big goblin's body. The big goblin was surrounded by the blood-colored demonic poison and was extremely vicious. Human, I will definitely kill you. How could I give you a chance? Heavenly Devil's voice can wipe out your Yuan spirit. Su Fong solved the difficult problem in front of all the disciples in a few moves. Because those disciples were not Devil Dao cultivators, they did not have the means to restrain the big goblin. Buzz, some special distorting powers were swept into the big goblin's essence, soul, seethed along with the blood poison. The big goblin also had a divine aperture, but it was too weak. Under the attack of Su Fong's Heavenly Devil's voice, it shattered and collapsed. The divine aperture was quickly controlled by Su Fong. The big goblin's Yuan spirit trembled in fear and was swept away by the Heavenly Devil's voice and shattered. Seal. Most of the big goblin's Yuan spirit had been killed by the Heavenly Devil's voice. Coupled with the special demonic poison, it could not resist Su Fong at all. The big goblin was born with great strength, but in terms of Yuan spirit, it was of little value to humans. Seeing that there was still a part of the big goblin's Yuan spirit that was still struggling, it condensed the sealing immortal patterns and the Yuan spirits to form a huge net, binding the big goblin's Yuan spirit into a cocoon. This time, the big goblin had fallen into Su Fong's hands. Just a bit of its Yuan spirit could still resist. After withdrawing the Heavenly Devil's voice and a large amount of demonic poison, Su Fong sat down on a rock and asked calmly, "Which one is Baby Snoring's treasure? Spit it out." Whoosh! The big goblin opened its mouth and spat out a sinister, demonic aura. A Dao artifact appeared. It was just an immortal sword, but it looked very outstanding. It was similar to the Heaven Monarch Soul Sword. This was something the disciples like Huangfu Hao and Huangfu Huaying could not have. Spit out all the treasures in your stomach. The flying sword was Baby Snoring's, and Su Fong did not want it. He immediately asked the big goblin to swallow it back into its stomach. Then, he ordered the big goblin to do so. The big goblin obediently opened its mouth and spat out more demonic aura. There were more than 10 Dao artifacts, as well as some gemstones that could not be melted. Su Fong picked a few good ones, as well as some gemstones that were full of spirit qi. He asked the big goblin to swallow the rest and leave them for Baby Snoring. He could not possibly let him take everything for himself. If the big goblin could swallow Baby Snoring's Dharma treasures, it could also swallow other cultivators' treasures. If there were no treasures in its stomach, Su Fong would be in trouble. Anyway, the big goblin's consciousness had been mostly wiped out and could not recover. It could not capture anything from the big goblin's consciousness. Su Fong could take advantage of the situation and keep these treasures. Why did he need so many low-grade Dao artifacts? Of course, he needed to arm the tens of thousands of big goblins in Xianhuang's Six Paths Pagoda. In the future, he would be suppressing even more big goblins. How many Dao artifacts would he need? In the blink of an eye, 6 days passed. Baby Snoring was really punctual. At dawn, there was some movement in the seal at the entrance of the cave. Baby Snoring was the first to enter, with a few followers. He shouted at Su Fong. 6 days have passed. If you can't get the big goblin to hand over the Dharma treasures, I will make sure you lose an arm or a leg today. Young master, you can just give the order to the big goblin. Su Fong bowed. Baby Snoring put his hands on his hips. Give me the Dharma treasures. Swoosh! While he was still in doubt, the big goblin immediately spat out a mouthful of demonic aura. One of the flying swords flashed, as if it had sensed Baby Snoring's presence. The sword aura became sharper. Ha! Baby Snoring grabbed the flying sword and stroked it back and forth. You bunch of people still want to laugh at me. You bastard! Now you're obedient. Congratulations, young master, for retrieving the treasured sword. The disciples quickly flattered him. Scram, come here. Baby Snoring shouted at the disciples and waved at Su Fong. Su Fong was happy. As he expected, there were benefits to sucking up to this young master. Young master, I'm Xiaohua from Huangfu. I've just entered the training hall to cultivate. Huangfu Xiaohua. I've heard of Huangfu Xiaohua. Oh, right, you're a foreign disciple. Since you're given the same surname as us, you're not an outsider. Now, go to the Heavenly Cloud Cave. I want to see young Master Tianyan. Yes, he didn't know where the heavenly cloud cave was. What was young Master Tianyan? However, he knew that there were 9 training halls in the constellation of 9 heavens. One of them was called Heavenly Cloud Peak. Could it be that he wanted to go to Heavenly Cloud Peak? Su Fong suddenly bowed again. However, Senior Huang Fu Hao said that I'm not allowed to leave Tiger Subdue Valley. If I leave even half a step, my legs will be broken. Baby Snoring suddenly formed a seal and grabbed the chains that sealed the big goblin. Holding the big goblin, he turned around and stood on top of the big goblin's head. Who is he? Who is his father? He's just an ordinary member of the family. Who is my father? The son is my father, and the elder is my grandfather. Does he have such a father? Does he have such a grandfather? Young master, you have to keep your word. Otherwise, I'm just a servant disciple. If I fall into the hands of Huang Fu Hao, losing an arm or a leg is a small matter. He'll definitely torture me to death. I don't want my life. All right. That's too much trouble. Come here. Baby Snoring called one of his disciples over. Go and pass a message to Huang Fu Hao. Tell him that Huang Fu Shaoying is my subordinate from now on. She will cultivate under me. All right, I'll go now. The disciple quickly left. Don't worry. Thank you, young master. You'll have a good life if you follow me from now on. Tell me later how you tamed this big goblin. Let's go to Heavenly Cloud Cave now. Baby Snoring was in a good mood. He waved his hand again. Su Fong rose into the air and came to his side. The other disciples also came to the big goblin's head. They rode on the big goblin and left the cave. In an instant, they soared into the sky. As they flew up to Huang Fu Peak, many immortals who were cultivating there bowed to Baby Snoring. Su Fong, on the other hand, took a good look at Huang Fu Peak for the first time. The main peak towered into the clouds. As he looked at the scenery, he also saw that inside Huang Fu Peak, there was a huge divine power that could control the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. This invisible divine power could control the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, as well as gather the chi of heaven and earth. It kept pouring into Huang Fu Peak's dojo. He was shocked. It's not simple. This is not something that a single person can do. There must be some kind of formation or treasure on Huang Fu Peak that is constantly absorbing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. This spiritual chi is then poured into countless corners of the dojo for the disciples to cultivate. Other than the main peak of Huang Fu Peak, there were dozens of other peaks of various sizes in the surroundings. They were all under the jurisdiction of Huang Fu Dojo. In the distance, there were huge peaks in all directions. They were obviously the dojos of other dojos. When Su Fong came back to his senses, the big goblin was flying towards a plateau under Baby Snoring's control. There were many tall ridges on the plateau. They were covered in ice and snow, and the cold air was very obvious. It was completely different from Huang Fu Peak's dojo. After flying into the plateau, they flew towards the peak next to the main peak in the center. Before they reached the peak, some disciples saw them at the peak. In just a short while, hundreds of disciples had gathered at the peak. There was a plaza at the middle of the mountain. Baby Snoring landed on the big goblin. Around him were some very young people, and some of them were even young masters. It was obvious that these people were the children of the higher-ups. Even if they were not cultivators, their status in the constellation of 9 heavens was much higher than that of ordinary disciples. Yo, you really dare to ride a toad outside. At this time, a giant winged flame beast suddenly appeared from the forest above the palace behind the crowd. There were also more than 10 disciples on the back of the giant winged flame beast. At the front was a noble young master who was about 2 years older than Baby Snoring. He was wearing a red robe. In front of many disciples, the noble young master mocked Baby Snoring, who came from Huang Fu Peak. At this time, even Su Fong felt a chill run down his spine. The surrounding disciples were all mocking and ridiculing him. Young Master Tianyin continued to mock. What's wrong, Baby Snoring? Are you still not convinced? You really have the cheek to come here. During this training, all of us saw how your treasure was swallowed by the big goblin. How could you not retrieve it? Come here and admit defeat. I don't have time to compete with you. Baby Snoring dodged, and the big goblin obediently spat out a gust of demonic energy. The flying sword returned to baby Snoring's hand in front of everyone. Look carefully, there are no higher-ups to help me. Young Master Tianyan, if you have the ability, let's go to a dangerous place and train there. Let's compete again. That's exactly what I want. Why don't we go to a dangerous place? If we can't go to a snowy place, we could go to a dangerous place. I'll send someone to inform you when I've made up my mind. Young Master Tianyan said arrogantly, you have the ability this time. This time, it's a tie. Next time, we'll have a winner. In the future, when you see people from Tianyan Peak, all of you from Huangfu Peak must bow and greet them. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Baby Snoring suppressed his anger and rode the big goblin back. Baby, take care. Good baby. Good baby. Baby, go to sleep. In the end, the young masters from Tianyan Peak were still sending Baby Snoring off. My parents gave me this name. Next time, I'll make you call me Grandpa Baby. I'm so angry. Baby Snoring was so angry that he didn't know whether to stand or sit. These young masters are living such a carefree life. How would they know the cruelty of the cultivation world? At the side, Su Fong, who was silent, shook his head helplessly. He still wanted to continue cultivating and become stronger. Chapter 909. Baby Snoring angrily brought everyone back to a mountain beside Huangfu Peak. When they arrived at a palace, Baby Snoring ordered the other disciples to take the big goblin away. He then led Su Fong to the palace and entered the garden behind it. He then laid on a chair lazily. It was Su Fong's first time entering the palace where the higher-ups of the constellation of 9 heavens lived. Not bad. Not bad at all. There were mountains and rivers. The palace was made entirely of celestial stones and was constantly gathering spiritual energy from the heavens and the earth. The palace was also covered with a layer of world energy. Baby Gourd suddenly stared at Su Fong. You have done a great service today. You'll have a good life if you follow me. It's my honor to be able to serve the young master. Su Fong needed to flatter a child. There was no lack of flattery everywhere. Don't give me false praises. My mother has found many talented experts for me over the years, but none of them were good enough. I was always bullied and made a joke out of myself. If you can make me proud in the future and bully those people in return, I will help you become a core disciple in Star Palace. Yes. Su Fong only responded, but he was very surprised in his heart. He did not expect Baby Snoring to be so good at winning people over. It was as if he was born with the ability to control people, just like the princes of the Xinyuan Empire. Baby Snoring's parents were higher-ups and had been influenced since he was young. He naturally knew how to use people and good people. It was almost a natural ability. After resting for a while, Baby Snoring was in a good mood. He brought Su Fong around. There were many people in the palace, but most of them were servants. There used to be a butler, but he was driven crazy by Baby Snoring and left helplessly. The others were female servants and some servants who did manual work. They were not considered disciples of the constellation of 9 heavens. They were mortals brought back from other planes and spaces. They were provided with food and shelter and were given elixirs. They were living like gods. Su Fong gradually got to know Baby Snoring better. Although he was the young master of a large family and had a bad temper, he would not randomly torture his servants. However, he had the temperament of a young master and needed everything to revolve around him. Baby Snoring also rewarded Su Fong with 100 basic immortal pills and gave him a room to rest in. Compared to the rising and falling Tiger Valley, this place was already a paradise. Su Fong could even enter and leave the temporary imperial residence and wander around the mountain peaks. He did not have the time to wander around. Furthermore, the spiritual energy in the pavilion was 10 times denser than in the Tiger Subdue Valley. This was Baby Snoring's training ground, and naturally, it was a blessed place for him to cultivate. Immortal pills were naturally distributed to Bai Ling, the Green Feather King, the Immortal Tortoise, the Vermilion Emperor, the Tongtian Demon Venerable, and the other big goblin. He did not need immortal pills now. He had the Blood Transformation True Body, the Black Lotus True Body, and a perfected physical body. He also had the World Fragment. He did not lack energy. In addition, he had already become an immortal and reached the virtual immortal realm. Now that he was cultivating in the outside world, he was in a normal state and was not suppressed. His speed was already very fast. He constantly channeled the spiritual energy in the temporary imperial residence into the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, allowing the countless big goblins to cultivate. The Flaming Cloud, Spiritual Gourd, and Starry Daylight Sword were also absorbing spiritual energy. If he wanted to improve the quality of these three treasures, Su Fong had to first become stronger. Also, he had to find some materials for the treasures to absorb. After cultivating in seclusion for 3 days, Baby Snoring sent someone over. He wanted to go to the main peak of Huangfu Peak to look for some supernatural powers. Su Fong had not been to Huangfu Peak before, and he did not know much about this side peak. Soon, the two of them arrived at the plaza of Huangfu Peak. In front of the plaza was a huge palace, and disciples were coming in and out from time to time. Baby Snoring's status was indeed not simple. All the disciples, regardless of whether they were from the royal family or not, had to be polite to him. He was the grandson of the current Huangfu elder, and this identity alone was enough to make him a person of respect in Huangfu Peak. Don't enter the city like a country bumpkin. After entering the palace, Su Fong saw a large number of strong cultivators. He could feel that each palace was protected by an invisible formation. Baby Snoring saw him like this and immediately told him not to be distracted. The two of them followed the stairs to a palace that was more than 10 stories high. It was too majestic. Suddenly, a buzzing sound came from his right arm. It was the purple Chi Dharma spirit. While Baby Snoring was talking to the other disciples, Su Fong slightly activated the purple Chi Dharma spirit to absorb the surrounding aura. Great pregnant purple Chi. In the end, he found that there was a weak great pregnant purple Chi among the natural aura. It was obvious that there was a magic treasure that was successfully brewing nearby, or a magic treasure that contained the great pregnant purple Chi. I thought that I could only find the great pregnant purple Chi in Jinwu Villa. I didn't expect that in the constellation of 9 heavens, there would be great pregnant purple Chi in the air, even though I can't see any weapon refinery. He really wanted the purple Chi Dharma spirit to absorb the great pregnant purple Chi. This way, he would become stronger, and when he absorbed the great pregnant purple Chi, he would be able to fuse with it. But for now, he did not know where the great pregnant purple Chi came from. This is the treasure pavilion of Huangfu Peak. There are magic treasures, all kinds of scriptures and secret manuals inside, but the servant disciples are not allowed to enter. Wait for me outside. I'm just going through the motions. They can come out after registering. Baby Snoop gave some instructions before entering the treasure pavilion that towered into the clouds by itself. Su Fong waited patiently at the bottom. He did not know if it was a coincidence or not. Suddenly, a fierce gaze shot from the front of the treasure pavilion. A middle-aged man walked out of the treasure pavilion with dozens of disciples. This man was Huangfu Duan, the master of Huangfu Shaoyue. In the Huangfu clan, Huangfu Duan was one of the higher-ups. Su Fong felt an invisible pressure. He turned around and saw Huangfu Duan. His heart skipped a beat. A servant disciple dares to come here? Huangfu Duan glanced at him coldly and did not say anything. He led a group of disciples into the forest from the right. But there were dozens of disciples left. These disciples also had a high status. They rushed over aggressively and actually surrounded Su Fong in an instant. A young immortal, also a disciple of the Huangfu clan, said with a strong aura, "According to the rules, only official disciples can enter the main peak. This servant disciple has no respect for the rules. Beat him to death. Let all the servant disciples see." Beat him. Before Su Fong could react, the surrounding people rushed over with a strong aura. Stop. At this critical moment, Su Fong could not fight back. He was at a disadvantage. However, Baby Snoring appeared just in time. When he saw this scene, he flew over and used his aura to push the experts back. He was furious. He looked at the experts and said, "This is my disciple. He came here on my orders. Who said he trespassed on the main peak? It's the young master." These immortals really knew how to change sides. When they saw that it was Baby Snoring, they immediately changed and try to curry favor with baby Snoring. What's wrong? In a forest not far from the main peak, Huang Fu Duan was waiting under the mottled sky. More than a dozen experts flew over, hastily reporting to Huang Fu Duan what had happened at the main peak. Huang Fu Duan waved his hand, and the experts almost fell down. They were so scared that they fell to their knees. He's just a servant disciple. Isn't he in the Tiger Valley? I was thinking of getting rid of him secretly. That was the best chance. You're all useless. My lord, it's not our fault. I didn't think that he would become Baby Snoop's man. That's the young master. How could we offend him? With his young master's temperament. If we touch his people, wouldn't Huang Fu Peak be unable to rest for 10 days and 10 nights? This useless man. I heard that the position of the main peak elder in Huang Fu might be inherited. Baby Snoring might become the future elder. Is it possible for it to be inherited? Huang Fu Duan was deeply startled. Soon after, he coldly raised his eyebrows. No matter what, Xiaoyue is still my disciple. Huang Fu Yinhai has gone too far. It was his son who first seized my disciple's treasure. His strength wasn't enough, so he died at Xiaoyue's hands. In turn, he used the family to get rid of Xiaoyue. All of you listen to him. If there's an opportunity in the future, get rid of that dog Huang Fu Xiaoying for me. Especially when he leaves the training hall. That's the best opportunity to kill him. Yes. Everyone listened obediently. At the side peak, Huang Fu Duan is Uncle Duan's disciple. After returning to the palace, Baby Snoring sat on the throne and thought for a while. He stared at Su Fong and said, Uncle Duan is my father's peer. He's very powerful and has influence in the family. He won't let you off easily because of what you did to Huang Fu Xiaoyue. I didn't expect this young master to be able to think of this. Su Fong remained silent. He realized that although Baby Snoring looked like a young master, he was also a smart person. He knew a little about the situation in Huang Fu Dojo. He's an elder. I can't offend him directly. I'll just hide when I see him in the future. But don't worry, he won't do anything to you when he knows that you're my man. Just don't let him have any evidence against you. I'll be cultivating in Tianbao, mysterious realm, during this time. I'll be going to the Forbidden Land with young Master Tianyin soon. I'll leave these elixirs for you. Cultivate well during this time. When my mother comes back, I'll ask her to allow you to cultivate in Tianbao mysterious realm. Hee. At this moment, Baby Snoring left behind a storage ring and went into a mysterious passage. Tianbao, mysterious realm. Where was this place? Su Fong knew more about Huang Fu Peak, but he didn't know about Tianbao, mysterious realm. It was obvious that there were many secrets in Huang Fu Dojo. He picked up the storage ring and saw that there were thousands of elixirs in it. Baby Snoring seemed to be a protective master. He didn't feel good when he saw Su Fong being taken advantage of in front of others. Obviously, he wanted to make it up to Su Fong. For a young master to treat his companion in such a manner, it meant that Baby Snoop wasn't a profligate and ignorant young master. On the way back to the room, Su Fong started to build a good relationship with the servants. He soon learned about Tianbao, mysterious realm, from them. It turned out that it was a treasure left behind by Baby Snoring's father when he was alive. Baby Snoring was quite pitiful. 1,000 years ago, when his mother was pregnant with him, his father led a group of disciples on a long journey to cultivate. In the end, they met with an accident in a barren land and died there. Originally, his father was the most likely person to become an elder in Huang Fu Peak. However, he met with an accident. Su Fong suddenly felt that Baby Snoring and he grew up in the same environment. They both lost their fathers when they were young. They both grew up alone and were treated coldly. When he thought about how he felt in the past, he suddenly started to understand Baby Snoring. In the room, Su Fong first distributed the elixirs to the big goblin. It was the weakest big goblin's turn to consume the elixirs and absorb their immortal power. This way, their overall strength would increase. Since I'm going out to train, I have to think of a way to suppress the monsters in the big goblin. There are only a dozen normal monsters in the second level. It's far from enough to deal with 100,000 big goblins. I can't catch 100,000 big goblins in the small world. In the big world, I have to suppress the monsters. Soon, Su Fong also started to cultivate. Chapter 9-10. A few years passed in the blink of an eye. In a room, Su Fong, who was sitting cross-legged in midair, was absorbing the three sword-shaped spirit qi and a large amount of natural immortal qi. Unexpectedly, his aura started to corrode. When he saw it, his smile bloomed like a flower. It turned out to be tribulation aura. He quickly released the seal in his body and used all his strength to attack every corner of his body. His body gradually burned with flames. The tribulation fire started to burn crazily, burning his skin to ashes. Some impurities seeped out of his flesh and blood. His aura gradually turned into the third level. Rumbling sounds came from his body. Every time it shook Su Fong so much that he almost vomited blood. After half a day, the tribulation aura disappeared and calmed down. His skin also started to grow back. It was as if he was instantly frozen. Under this speed, Su Fong returned to normal. He felt 2 years younger. Now, he only looked like a teenager. He became younger. After Su Fong discovered it, he thought carefully but couldn't think of a reason. He asked Luo. Luo could naturally answer his question. It turned out that this meant that the immortal power in his body was purer, and his immortal body was more perfect. He was less shackled by the great world. His overall strength increased. When he merged with the great world, his vitality would reach the peak. The most obvious change in this peak was that he would become younger. After understanding this, Su Fong started to condense various immortal patterns. He cultivated the illusory fire cloud, ethereal enlightenment, and Nine-Yang 9 changes. He also urged the world fragment to absorb more world power. His golden core of origin and divine aperture each had an additional Dao mark. 3 Dao marks meant that he was now in the third level of the essence immortal realm. His breakthrough speed was catching up to the height of the small world. The starry daylight sword, flaming cloud's spirit gourd, and Xianwang's 6 paths pagoda also improved. Unfortunately, he lost the Ghost Fong wheel. This was nothing. For the time being, he had the Silver Moon immortal armor to protect him. With the starry daylight sword, he had no problem dealing with essence immortals. However, to deal with spirit immortals, he still needed a powerful offensive Dharma treasure. The starry daylight sword couldn't deal with enemies of a higher level. Therefore, he needed a high-quality Dharma treasure. Unknowingly, 7 to 8 years of cultivation had passed. Baby Snoring asked him to get ready and said that he was going to the Mirror Moon Wasteland. Mirror Moon Wasteland. Su Fong's jaw almost dropped to the ground. Why? The Mirror Moon Wasteland was a wasteland. A wasteland was 10 times more dangerous than a danger zone. It was as dangerous as the real plain abyss and the outer space. More importantly, Su Fong had seen the Mirror Moon Wasteland on the map when he learned about the Yuan Lu Great World and the Xian'ao Great World. It was also in the depths of the border between the 2 great worlds. It was almost parallel to the constellation of 9 heavens, but it was also very far away from the constellation of 9 heavens. It would probably take several years to get there. Moreover, he was an expert. If it was a virtual immortal or spirit immortal, it would take decades. The wasteland was a world left behind from ancient times. It was called the wasteland. Desolate was the ancient era. Therefore, in the countless great worlds, what was known as the wasteland was a dangerous place beyond the danger zones. It was the same as the abyssal plane and the outer realm. It was the realm of human cultivators. In the wasteland, there were demonic cultivators, evil cultivators, and big goblin cultivators. The wasteland was not a world for cultivators of the righteous path. Instead, it was the habitat of big goblin cultivators. Cultivators of both demonic and evil cultivators often appeared there. Many immortals did not dare to take a step into the wasteland. Everyone knows that the Mirror Moon Wasteland is a dangerous place. These high-ranking young master and young master really treat the wasteland as a playground. After tidying up his things, Su Fong went to the temporary imperial residence gloomily. After waiting for a while, Baby Snoring came out. He was alone. He only brought Su Fong to the Mirror Moon Wasteland. Baby Snoring had always liked to go out and train alone. It was the same the last time. Actually, there were also experts in this side peak. It was just that he insisted on doing it recklessly, as if he was very anxious to prove himself. Baby Snoring was also a decisive person. He immediately activated the token with Su Fong and stepped into a passageway. In a few moments, they left the boundary of the constellation of 9 heavens. The two of them appeared in a desolate and ancient void. Below them was a desolate land. There were only glaciers and ruins. There were no signs of life. The training hall of the constellation of 9 heavens was built on top of a ruin. It was obvious that this ruin was not an ordinary one. Baby Snoring knew that Su Fong was a virtual immortal. There was a huge difference between their cultivation levels. He summoned his flying sword and carried Su Fong to increase their speed. They gradually flew out of the ruins. Suddenly, only the two of them were left in the world. They flew in the void and the cold air currents. Baby Snoring was still very strong. After all, he was a young master. He had eaten a lot of spiritual items since he was young. Even if he did not cultivate diligently, he had already surpassed the spirit immortal realm. With his flying sword, he was able to carry the two of them safely in the void. In the void, everything was no longer important, especially time. Unknowingly, a few years had passed. Baby Snoring took out a map. It was his first time coming to such a faraway place in the void. After flying for another half a year, they encountered more and more objects and ruins in the void. Sometimes they had to pass through nebulas of different sizes. The nebulas of the great world were different from the small world. The nebulas of the small world looked like ordinary clouds. On the other hand, the nebulas of the great world were of different colors. They formed a vast mass of objects that glowed with starlight. Nebulas also had colors. They were as dark as the stars, and nebulas were also dark. After another half a year, they passed through the nebulas that were connected intermittently. The two of them felt like they were in a place at the end of the void. It was like a spinning top storm. The Mirror Moon Barren Land. The storm was unimaginably vast. The closer they got, the more incredulous they felt. When they entered the storm, they realized that the storm was not the main point. It was a special space formed by countless objects, ruins, nebulas, and cold air currents. This space was far bigger than the constellation of 9 heavens. It was probably thousands or even tens of thousands of times bigger. After flying for a few hours, they finally saw a strange floating object that looked like a hornet's nest. It was full of holes. This was the Mirror Moon Barren Land. It still looked like an angry hornet's nest. From the large number of holes, the cavern-like holes were constantly ejecting air currents. The closer the two of them got, the stronger the shackles of the void became. Especially for Su Fong, the matter here was too complicated, especially the energy. At this time, Su Fong muttered in her heart. She was also shocked by the Mirror Moon Barren Land. Law's voice sounded in her mind. You have to be careful. The Barren Land is very dangerous. The experts of the demonic path, the evil path, and the demon race are secondary. The natural power here is destructive. Some air currents can even shatter a Tao artifact. There are many natural forces inside, such as thunder and lightning, such as flames, and especially some natural tearing, pressure, collapse, and natural disasters. Even experts will fall inside. You also know about the Mirror Moon Barren Land? Su Fong was startled. I have never heard of the Mirror Moon Barren Land. There are only a few barren lands in the Great World that I have heard of, and those barren lands are almost as big as the Great World. For example, some barren lands are as vast as the Yuan Lu Great World that you know. If there's such a shocking barren land, how many times bigger is it than the Mirror Moon Barren Land? Don't think too much. You're not strong enough, so you can't see too far. When you become an expert in the constellation of 9 heavens, you will naturally know about those emperors and the ancient outer space. This Mirror Moon Barren Land is nothing in my eyes, but it is enough to kill most immortals. Even those immortal realm lords in the Yuan Lu Great World would not dare to act rashly here. Once they enter, they will also fall. Only a great world lord can truly move unhindered in this barren land. A great world lord. What kind of existence was that? Even a great immortal realm lord was already an unparalleled expert. Those small world lords in the past, such as the 6 lords of fertility, the immortal Grand Domain Lord, and the Emperor of Shenyuan, which one of them was not a peerless existence. Focus. Baby Snoring's aura suddenly changed. It caused Su Fong to look in all directions. It turned out that they had already arrived in front of the huge Mirror Moon barren land. The countless caves looked like the ferocious mouth of a demon. Slowing down, Baby Snoring activated the token, and the two began to wait. This place is even scarier than the legends say. If young Master Tianyin dares to come here, why can't I? Baby Snoring clenched his fists, suppressing his anger. He was throwing his life away in a fit of pique. After about half a day, more than 30 immortals from the constellation of 9 heavens flew out from one of the caves in the barren land. A few of them were very strong and flew at the back. The rest were very young, especially the 2 immortals at the front who were riding immortal swords. They were only 2 years older than Baby Snoring. One of them was the young Master Tianyin from Tianyin Cave. The other person should be a young master of the same status. Young Master Crouching Immortal is also here. He and young Master Tianyin have always been in cahoots. Seeing the 2 young masters, Baby Snoring looked at the unfamiliar young master and was very unhappy. Young Master Crouching Immortal. Su Fong recognized the other party. It was one of the 9 great dojos of the constellation of 9 heavens, Crouching Immortal Valley Dojo. And this young Master Crouching Immortal must be the grandson of the elder of Crouching Immortal Valley. Yo! The 2 young masters rode on their swords and flew over. In front of so many people, young Master Tianyin shouted, "You really dare to come here? Why wouldn't I dare?" Baby Snoring coldly retorted. Young Master Crouching Immortal continued, "Coincidentally, both of our dojos have disciples who are carrying out missions or training in this dangerous land. We will give you a chance to choose the method of battle." All right then. Baby Snoring suddenly looked at Su Fong and whispered, "They have the advantage in numbers. I've already thought about it. I can't let them have the upper hand. Young Master, don't be too hard on yourself. This is a wasteland. There are too many dangers." Su Fong still tried his best to persuade him. The people from Heavenly Cloud Cave in Crouching Immortal Valley went to Huangfu Peak when I was young. They scolded me for having a mother and not having a father to teach me. Baby Snoring did not hear Su Fong's words, but Su Fong listened to him. Suddenly, he felt that he understood Baby Snoring better. He understood why he was willing to take the risk and not come to the Mirror Moon Wasteland. He had experienced this kind of stubbornness in the past. Baby Snoring suddenly turned around and faced the 2 young Master Tianyin. "I heard that there are many wastelands in the Mirror Moon Wasteland. Chi, 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 na, chi, 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 pan, chi, 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 chi." All right, let's look for the Lin Canwa. Let's go. Young Master Tianyin did not hold back after hearing this. He led the experts and young Master Crouching Immortal into the deep cave. We have the advantage in numbers, but the Lin Canwa is not everywhere. There are too few of them. We need more luck. Baby Snoring looked at the backs of the group of people and slowly followed them with Su Fong. Chapter 9:11. When they entered the cave, it was as if they had entered another world. The cave was a wasteland world, and the outside was a void. At this moment, the 2 of them felt as if they had arrived at a place where all living things were desolate. Air currents of various colors were flowing everywhere. More importantly, the Mirror Moon Wasteland was a physical object, and they were in a physical space. But now, they felt that there was no physical object around them, as if they were in a boundless void world. Rumor has it that the wasteland is like an abyss, and it will cause the internal space to be inverted, reflecting a large amount of empty space. That is indeed the case. Baby Snoring looked around. Although he was shorter than Su Fong by a head, his aura and gaze were much stronger. Let's go out slowly. The Mirror Moon Wasteland has a very different kind of danger, such as the psychedelic snow wasteland. Due to the influence of different spatial forces in the wasteland, There will be various spatial movements and different air currents. When there is a large-scale movement, once a cultivator enters it, he will be lost and never be able to walk out. Su Fong followed by his side and moved forward slowly. We can sense the aura of our fellow disciples. They are from the two dojos, and their relationship with Huang Fu Peak is average. They will probably tell young Master Tianyun about our movements. We just have to not enter the wasteland and move around outside. Baby's snoring was persistent. This time, I can't lose to young Master Tianyun, or else he will talk about me behind my back. I can't hold my head up high, and my mother won't be able to hold her head up high. They flew for a while, and although their speed was not fast, their shackles were shocking. In the wasteland world, all they could see was an empty space, and there was not even a fragment. They felt as if everything around them was moving, but they could not sense it. About an hour later, a dense forest suddenly appeared in front of Su Fong, and Baby snored along with a gust of wind. Illusion. Su Fong immediately used his full circle ability and found that the forest was filled with wood elemental aura. The earth's spiritual aura was also abundant, and there was also a large amount of demonic aura. The 5 elements of heaven and earth merged with the aura of nature, forming a natural and majestic spiritual aura. It was real. This was sensing an invisible space that could be seen through one's eyes. It seemed formless, but the rich power of nature was in that formless state. Immortals could use their senses to sense auras that did not exist. Baby Snoring's cultivation base was very high, and his senses were very strong as well. Although he didn't have the power of a full circle cultivator, Su Fong couldn't compare to his ability to sense things. After entering the forest, they saw some cliffs and precipitous cliffs. In the depths of the forest, there seemed to be a boundless basin. In the depths of the clouds, they could even see mountain ranges. However, it was also very strange. The mountain range and the clouds seemed real just a moment ago, but when he looked at them again, they had all disappeared. There was only a forest in front of him. Even the cliff had disappeared. The Mirror Moon barren land was too strange. It was Baby Snoring's first time in the wasteland as well. Growing up, he had only been to dangerous places like the psychedelic snow wasteland. The wasteland was a first. It was Su Fong's first time in the wasteland as well. He had seen the dangerous places and the small abyss. After entering the forest, the shackles were still very strong. Su Fong could only jog. Baby Snoring, on the other hand, could fly. He seemed to be much faster than Su Fong, but compared to his normal state, he was more than 100 times slower. Su Fong felt very comfortable. Although this was a wasteland, there were trees, chi of the 5 elements, and various kinds of spiritual energy. He could absorb any kind of aura. After half a day, they found some normal spiritual objects, spiritual herbs, and spiritual fruits. Baby Snoring didn't care about them. With his cultivation base and status, these spiritual objects were just normal herbs. To Su Fong and the Big Goblin, these spiritual objects were 10,000 times more precious than Lingji. Baby Snoring saw that Su Fong was collecting spiritual objects along the way. He gave him enough time, so he didn't rush him. At this moment, the two of them passed through the first forest. In front of them was a huge mountain. Demonic chi was seeping out from the middle of the mountain. Baby Snoring whispered, "The snake spirit ginseng is very special. It's a type of spiritual herb that can move. It has some consciousness. When this spiritual object comes in contact with the demonic chi of the Big Goblin, it can form a forest ginseng flower. If you and I look in the direction of the demonic chi, we can find this special spiritual object that contains demonic chi and spiritual chi. Those two useless young master might not be strong, but what about their subordinates? Read, Ichomi Ronbo Lai, Chun, Chunyi, plant. This spiritual object must be in the wasteland? Hermaphroditic? Woo? What's more, the gray spine and plum blossoms are healthy and strong. Rolling reef? What is this? What is this? Kong Meng? This was a good thing. However, this was a wasteland. Even if you were confident, you wouldn't be able to get the forest ginseng flower. After spending a few more hours, which was almost a day, the two of them finally arrived deep in the mountains. They approached a hinterland that was filled with demonic chi. When they arrived at the hinterland, they saw that it wasn't the wasteland. Wu? Huanchunyi? The valley formed by the snake nest was filled with poisonous snakes. Although the demonic chi was not strong, the demonic venom was extremely terrifying. Let's go. When baby Snoring saw the snake nest, he was so scared that his expression changed. If the snake nest was disturbed, not to mention him, even experts like Huangfu Duan and Huangfu Yinhai would be killed by the snakes. At this moment, the difference between Su Fong and baby Snoring was obvious. He grew up in the constellation of 9 heavens and had never experienced real life and death situations. Such a terrifying snake nest would probably make his body and mind tremble. Although Su Fong was also uneasy, his heart was calm. After cultivating in the small world for hundreds of years, he had experienced countless life and death situations. In terms of Dao heart, he was much stronger than baby Snoring. Even if there were many disciples in the constellation of 9 heavens, there might not be many people who could surpass Su Fong in this aspect. After that, they entered a few more places with the big goblin's aura. None of them were wastelands. Chuanshi, Barium, Guanshi, Chun, Chunyi, Jinwan Guanghu, Huai, subcutaneous muscle. Huang. Base This was the first monster that Su Fong encountered when he first entered the Great World. Of course, he was very familiar with it. Huang. Green onion frown? Play. Ichio Hua Delta. Mao. Ping Hui Zhonghi Dan. Hibiscus? How could the Emperor of Chaos be stupid? Pouring on a boat, needless to say, baby Snoring did come prepared. They're from the same sect. He stepped into the canyon and passed through a large number of plants along the cliff. However, before long, he suddenly saw several star-robed immortals carefully flying into the canyon on their swords. After Su Fong went into hiding, baby Snoring poked his head out to take a look. What a coincidence! It's the disciples of the sleeping celestial valley, and they're all elite disciples. I think there are some core disciples in this barren land as well. It seems like we're a step too late. But don't worry, the forest ginseng flower is a spiritual item. The two of them headed deeper into the canyon. Soon, a lot of moisture appeared around them, and the air became foggy. Su Fong secretly used his great perfection ability to sense some of the constellation of 9 heavens Jinshi in the air. Then, he heard a sudden explosion nearby. Magnetism? What? Message? What? Do you think I'm afraid of fish? Songjian, when they reached the center of the canyon, they saw countless caves. They were densely packed together, as if they were scattered all over the place. Surprisingly, there were also a dozen waterfalls that fell from the sky, forming a churning lake below. The lake water then flowed into some of the caves. Demonic energy seeped out from those caves. Fortunately, not every cave had demonic energy. Perhaps this was desolate. How shameless. Chest cavity? Word? Baby Snort quickly flew into a cave with Su Fong. After landing, they waited for a while before looking around. There were some bones and some demonic beast fur. A foul stench came from the cave and assailed their nostrils. Demonic chi was like water vapor, rolling out from other cracks. In order to not be desolated, Songjian, are you full? Tua luo muchio bei. Tua xianku. Tua fu chung hua yu ro bai yao. Generation Emperor Ben, Tua bai. Expose Huang Fong. Guai Nao. Who knew that they would really meet a desolate? Muchio bei. Deceiving Muchio bei. Dihuan. Chu. Armpit Yu. Hurrying Muchio bei. Fu Shu. Looking at Muchio bei. Looks like the desolate that lives in the desolate. Chu. Alpha Siebien. Chiu bei. Luo Yu. Baby Snoring looked around for a while and found some plants. However, he did not find any ginseng flowers, not even the shadow of the snake's spirit ginseng. He could only go to the other caves to take a look. Slowly, the two of them arrived at an even bigger cave, and it was a bright one. Some rainwater sprinkled down from the hole that was as big as a well. Under the mottled sunlight, they could see that this was a huge desolate. Shameless? Fushu Yin Chun Tuo Xingma, Chiu Bei, Xiaomu Chiu Bei. To pay Tao 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 Tong with so many monsters around, It was impossible for baby Snoring and Su Fong to take Lin Canhua away. Perhaps the two of them had desolate on them? Beat me on the head? Ing? Wandering? Protect? Yumanrue stewed the core plate lightly charred, encouraged by the fear of the shipping industry, the straws of straws. Their leaders were the two young master of Heavenly Cloud Cave and Sleeping Immortal Valley. They were only about 30 meters away, but they didn't notice the two people hiding in the dark. The crouching immortal young master suddenly said in a low voice, "I think we should just forget about it. I reckon this is the biggest nest. It has the forest song flower, but there are so many powerful desolates. Are you willing to be at the top of a pole? Wishing stool? Shameful and shameless. Harrier? Is this ship Huan Zizheng?" Mungy sneered, "Engraved cake selection. We can't just give up like this. What if that brat finds the forest song flower?" The young master of Heavenly Cloud Cave also replied in a low voice, We could spend a lot of money and ask someone to buy one. Isn't this a simple matter? Moreover, that person in the ruins might die here. He's too daring to casually bring a servant to the wasteland. We have to hurry back. If he really dies, you and I won't be able to hold up the responsibility. Yes. If he really dies, we'll be in trouble. What kind of brain does that brat have? He's no match for us. If he dies, so be it. What does it have to do with us? Let's go back. The two young master discussed for a while, then turned around and left. Baby Snoring almost rushed out, colluding with each other. Despicable. At this point, Baby Snoring finally realized that this was all a farce, an insignificant joke. He was the only one who valued everything, but the others treated him like a monkey. Squeak. Baby Snoring was so angry that he clenched his fists so hard that the rocks around him were peeling and breaking. Su Fong suddenly said, "Young master, don't mind them. But what they said is true. We have to leave before they do. We have to buy a ginseng flower before they do. We'll give them a taste of their own medicine. They're no match for you, young master." Oh, Baby Snoring's spirit was lifted. Good idea. You're really something. Why didn't I think of using this method to deal with them? Huff, huff. At this moment, several desolates. Huff, huff. Pry. Huff, huff, puff. The two were so scared that their hearts almost stopped beating. Fortunately, they weren't coming for them. Instead, they were rushing towards the cave that young Master Tianyun and young Master Lying Immortal went out. As for the other desolates, hurry to Huff. Wake up from shame. Huff. Lang. Tear apart and ask. Huff. 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 Pretentious and hesitant. Chapter 9:12. Huang. Was it because of the Acripoid plague? Ichioru Wan Yao arrived at the school with a lecture on Guayu, vinegar, workshop, pure fetishes. Are you jealous? Curtain, Hyoxum. Baby Snoring carried Su Fong on a sword and flew quickly. He did not care about the shackles and the consumption of his energy. However, they did not travel far before a large number of tremors came from different caves. Some of the air currents that shot out were filled with demonic chi and blood. It's not human blood. The blood energy is full of demonic nature. I know, it must be some big goblin that barged into this desolate land. Shame? Clusters of pine trees close to the swan base. Bin Chun, Tao Zheng, Yi Qiu, Yi Xing Xingkai. Hydra? Crotch. Nek Huan Su Fong actually just sensed this as well. Only now did he understand that it wasn't some cultivator who woke up so many desolates. Cigars? Frame, from the looks of it, both sides are locked in battle outside the nest. No matter which side wins, they will fight their way back to the nest. Let's go back and leave from the other side of the nest. All right, young master. No matter what Baby Snoring said, Su Fong would respond. Then, he turned around and rushed back into the depths of the nest. Right at this time, several desolates appeared, giving locusts ash to recover hemorrhoids from the fishy smell, scolding, baiting Panzong. How much is it worth? Joe, old Uncle Lou, Bitshu, BR, wine, what, medical school, Yushu Huang, ha, shamefully bestow, right step, realm Wahalai, Fengshi. Is it possible to shake the tip of a tree with a joyful taste? Zhao Yu argon bad fall neon pole, Jing ping tian, delightful, hydra, drum, and rammer major. Was it too difficult to cut them down? Jing, C.E. Eight-winged babbler. It feels a bit similar to a 9-segment earth dragon. The poisonous bugs were fast, their numbers great, just like man-eating ants. Several of them wrapped around a single desolate. What? The Canton Clinic Huang? Why'd I have to choke you? Gallery glycoside? Sun Chu? Mechanical curtain? Stealing words? Ada, looking at Hydra? The tip of the hoop drifts far away in the rain. Minamoto ninja gun? Chong Sun DMO? Retreat and close the door? Chun Yun, the joyous realm widow Feishi? Gingivium lanceolatum chopper. That's an abyss 100-legged monster. I've heard that these 100-legged monsters build insect nests in the depths of the abyss. They aren't very strong, and once they move in groups, even human experts will have a hard time dealing with them. They can only use long-range attacks, and once they surround you, you'll only die. Desolate after desolate, medical school, Phoenix Core bomb, Ichio is nagging, carries in the mountains, Shi Huai Wei Yon Wei, the Emperor's back, partridge and partridge with polyurethane glue after half an incense stick's worth of time. They crossed the desolate plateau. Shame, blow away my sword, vomiting, bad friends, hastily appointed a servant, Scrofula, hedgehog, and commoner, a bartender who runs a sand mill, hail and hearty AO, shovel, Kyushu County, sodium, AO. These streams of air swirled, but their speed was not fast. It felt as if there was a formless power of nature pulling at space, forming streams of air that intertwined with each other. It didn't seem scary, it was just a stream of air. However, Baby Snoring was very careful this time. He said that any natural environment in the wasteland was very dangerous. So he took out a piece of immortal stone. Chi, the immortal stone, was like a piece of flint. When Baby Snoring struck it with his palm, it shot into the air. Sizzle, sizzle, who knew? As soon as it entered the airflow, the immortal stone seemed to have solidified. Then, the complex airflow, which did not seem to have strong movements, actually turned the immortal stone into fine powder. It was swallowed in one gulp. The legend is true. The space in the depths of the Mirror Moon wasteland is too complex. It created airflow that can destroy doctrine artifacts. Luckily, there were many masters in our faction who came here to cultivate and recorded their experiences in secret manuals. Otherwise, many people would have died in vain. If we can't go from the top, then we'll follow Baby and climb from the bottom. Desolation was behind them. Shame? Lanimo me? She. Is it possible for a worm to glide on a stalk? She. Wanli mu chun she. Baby Snoring was filled with courage. At least in front of his servants, he could not be scared out of his wits. Once again, they rode on their swords. Since there was no way out, they could only charge into the depths of the airflow that covered the sky. They flew into the depths, thinking that they could see the abyss. But they were wrong. After an hour, they still did not see any rocks, forests, or even the nest canyon at the top had disappeared. It was too strange. Baby Snoring did not know what was going on. Su Fong could only secretly seek help from Luo. Law gave the answer, saying that in this wasteland, space is in a complex movement for a long time, changing the position of space, and the internal space is always moving. To put it simply, the canyons and mountain ranges that were located in the interior of the wasteland were constantly moving. They were moving without any rules or trajectories. Upon learning this, Su Fong was completely dumbfounded. It seemed like he more or less understood why the Mirror Moon barren land was called Mirror Moon. This was a type of mirage. What they saw wasn't real, and what they touched would quickly disappear. What if they didn't leave Huang? Female antimicrobial carries? White coat and black ink. Inchi Wu, Shang Xian Qing, A Huang, rough, Zhan Lai, ointment, wandering in the wilderness and verdant in the end. After spending another 2 hours, the sword Qi carried the two of them, but they still could not find a place to rest. Baby Snoring was also exhausted. Baby Snoring could not fall into this kind of danger, so he finally decided to travel through the air currents. Fortunately, The lower levels of the air currents were not too obvious. Baby Snoring took out some immortal stones, and with every step he took, he would throw one immortal stone to test it out. This kind of method really did work. Some of the immortal stones were thrown deep into the air currents, but they were not affected much. Most of the immortal stones that were thrown into other air currents were crushed. Just like that, they moved forward step by step, as if they were walking on thin ice. Baby Snoring gradually gained experience and began to speed up on the sword chi. From time to time, he would feel pressure from the air currents and their chi field or sword chi, affecting their speed. Finally, the two of them suddenly arrived in front of a cliff. They could not see how high the cliff was, nor how deep it was. The cliff was supported by some vines and plants. Fortunately, the two of them soon found a cave. The cave was naturally formed, as if a rock had cracked open. When they arrived at the cave, there were traces of beasts and monsters. Su Fong secretly used his great perfection ability and kept going deeper into the cave. Deep in the cave was an irregular space that could only allow 3 people to pass through side by side. The two of them were still flying slowly on the sword chi, and some cold air almost froze them here. Hiss, hiss, with his great perfection ability, Su Fong sensed a surge of vital chi. It was vital chi, and it was much more abundant than natural chi. He secretly glanced at Baby Snoring and realized that he had not sensed anything. He then reminded him, "Young master, I think there's something wrong in front of us." Oh, Baby Snoring no longer treated Su Fong as a servant, probably because he had experienced all kinds of dangers in this wasteland. Sometimes he would even put on a brave front, but in front of Su Fong, he would still panic. Baby Snoring heard him and quickly used his sensing ability to detect the vital chi. Soon, he realized that something was wrong and carefully slowed down with Su Fong. After moving forward for a while, they encountered a few air currents that came at them at the same time. It turned out that there were a few more underground spaces in the depths of the fissure. In the end, they chose one randomly. Not long after the two of them entered, they suddenly felt a fragrance coming from the rocks. Then, there was also a fragrance coming from the air currents. It's demonic chi and some evil vital chi. Su Fong kept releasing his great perfection ability, and it was a matter of life and death at every moment. He did not dare to be careless, and he also realized that there were more things that he was puzzled about. When they entered an ancient karst cave, before the two of them stepped in, they realized that there was a huge nest suspended in the air above the cave. It was about 10 feet in size, and there were many small holes. When Su Fong saw the nest, he suddenly remembered the beehives he saw on the Purple Cloud Mountain when he was young. Baby Snoring was pleasantly surprised. This is the snow-winged poisonous bee, and it likes to live in the cold abyss. The liquid secreted by the beehive is extremely precious, and it's a peerless spiritual item that can cleanse one's marrow. A few drops of it can be exchanged for a Tao artifact, and a large amount of it can be exchanged for a decent Tao artifact. This kind of snow-winged poisonous bee's beehive is extremely rare, and we actually encountered it. Su Fong was also very surprised when he heard that. The beehive was a peerless treasure, since it was a treasure that cleansed one's marrow. If he could obtain it in large quantities, wouldn't it allow tens of thousands of big goblins to become demon immortals faster? However, he pointed to the surroundings and said, "Young master, there's an evil aura. I think there's an evil sect expert nearby." So it's an evil sect's aura. I thought it was a demonic cultivator. There's only one possibility for cultivators to appear here, and that is that they're here to collect the spiritual liquid of the snow-winged poisonous bee's beehive. It's too dangerous. The snow-winged poisonous bee's poison is extremely strong, and it's 10 times more poisonous than the 100-legged monsters in the abyss. Immortals would be poisoned to death with just one stab. Young master, if you want to get the spiritual liquid, we could devise a plan to deal with those demonic cultivators. Since the demonic cultivators and the righteous cultivators are at odds, why don't we expose their location and let the snow-winged poisonous bees hunt them down? It's the same as letting the demonic cultivators attract the poisonous bees, and we'll collect the spiritual liquid. Isn't this a little too vicious? Baby Snoring felt as if he didn't know Su Fong at all. However, after exclaiming in surprise, he suddenly rubbed his hands together and said, "All right, this is a rare opportunity. We can exchange it for a lot of treasures. Let's do it this way. Leave it to me." When they lure the poisonous bees away, young master, hurry up and collect the spiritual liquid. Not only did Su Fong offer a plan, but he also took the initiative to think of a way to deal with those demonic cultivators. Baby Snoring probably didn't know what method Su Fong had that allowed the demonic cultivators to lure the poisonous bees away without making a sound. However, he realized that Su Fong was the one who discovered the dangers along the way. Perhaps this Huang Fu Shaoying could really do it. At this moment, Su Fong had already arrived at another fissure. He summoned the Wooling Goblin and sealed some of the poisonous liquid around the cave. The Wooling Goblin swallowed Su Fong in one gulp and turned into a stone bell. It didn't have any demonic aura, and it didn't make much noise either. It quickly rolled its body over the top of the rock wall. After a few breaths, they saw more than 10 gray-robed cultivators in another fissure. They also heard a few of them whispering to each other. It turned out that these people were experts from the Evil Chamber of Commerce in the Yuan Fortune world. They represented the Chamber of Commerce in the Mirror Moon Wasteland in search of the snow-winged beehive. I won't stand on ceremony then. The Wooling Goblin was like a black tree root. It sat above the 10 people and opened its mouth. A seal was released, and some of the poisonous liquid turned into moisture and began to disperse downwards. After a few breaths, the Wooling Goblin arrived outside the cave. After waiting for a while, it drilled into a 1-foot-wide fissure and suddenly gritted its teeth. Boom! A dull sound suddenly echoed in the cave. It was like spring thunder. Suddenly, there was a deafening commotion in the depths of the abyss. Buzz, buzz, buzz in a split second. Su Fong and the Wooling Goblin saw a large number of snow-winged poisonous bees flying towards them from the honeycomb-sized cave. It was Su Fong's first time seeing the snow-winged poisonous bees. Their bodies were black, but they had a pair of snow-white crystal wings. They quickly flew into the fissure and chased after the demonic cultivators who didn't know what was going on. They began to flee. After a while, countless snow-winged poisonous bees chased after them. At this moment, a flame suddenly swept across the interior of the cave. It turned out that Baby Snoring had made his move. He used his primordial fire to burn the remaining poisonous bees around the honeycomb-sized beehive. At the same time, he activated his divine sword and continuously killed the surrounding poisonous bees. The author's words, depressing, the system update is a little slow. I have to update it manually. Chapter 9:13. When Su Fong appeared, the entire beehive was burning under the primordial fire, causing some of the bees to be unable to get close. When Baby Snoring saw Su Fong, he transmitted a message to him, asking him to use his fire-type supernatural power to enter the beehive. Since the bees were afraid of fire, they did not dare to enter the primordial fire. This was a good idea. Activating the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, he dashed into the primordial fire like a shooting star. When he arrived at the beehive, he saw some holes and wriggling bee pupae. Luckily, the primordial fire did not really destroy the beehive. These pupae only sensed the threat. Natal treasure, 6-story pagoda door open. This was the best opportunity. Su Fong activated the power of his natal treasure to the maximum. His body merged with the treasure, turning into a 6-story pagoda. Then, the 6 pagoda doors opened, releasing 6 suction forces into the holes. Swoosh! A large amount of milky white liquid was sucked into the natal treasure. Wherever Su Fong went, most of the liquid would be sucked away in an instant. Good, you two thieves. You're the troublemakers. They were sucking in the liquid. However, 3 gray-clothed practitioners suddenly appeared from the other side of the crack. The moment they saw Su Fong and Baby Snort sitting around the beehive and absorbing the spirit liquid, the 3 of them were furious. Let's go. Who knew that the evil experts would come back when they were running for their lives? Perhaps they were the 3 experts hiding in another place. Baby Snoring shouted. Su Fong immediately turned into his normal form, broke through the primordial fire, and met with Baby Snoring on the left side of the beehive. So, it's the disciples of the constellation of 9 heavens. This time, we met the disciples of the Star Palace in the Mirror Moon Wasteland. You've spoiled our plans, so we'll kill the 2 of you. Kill. The 3 of them flew towards the beehive. Baby Snoring is not afraid of a few evil cultivators. Baby Snoring rolled up his sleeves, ready to fight. Do you want the beehive's liquid, or do you want to kill us? Think carefully. But Su Fong was one step ahead. He activated hundreds of sword chis. The 3 experts that rushed towards them first shouted and then attacked the beehive proudly. How dare you? The snow-winged bees were not strong, but the beehive's strength. Furthermore, the beehive was not sturdy. If it was struck by the sword chi, the beehive would fall into the abyss, and the evil cultivators would have wasted their trip. The 3 ferocious experts immediately pounced on the sword chi. At this moment, Baby Snoop finally came back to its senses. It hurriedly activated its sword chi and brought Su Fong into a cracked space behind the cliff. He really didn't chase after us. As soon as it entered the cave, Baby Snoop turned around and glanced around. Only when it didn't see the 3 people chasing after it did it heave a sigh of relief. Su Fong touched his nose coldly. Young master, don't worry. These people are probably sent by some chamber of commerce to steal the beehive's liquid. They value the liquid more than their lives. They won't chase after us. Moreover, the snow-winged bees will be back soon. They don't have much time to take care of themselves. I see. Baby Snoring suddenly looked at Su Fong in a new light. They entered other fissures one after another. They did not know how far they went until Baby Snoring was panting from exhaustion. Then they rested in a cave. Baby Snoring suddenly activated a bell with his right hand. The bell was hung high above the cave. It emitted a strong defensive barrier that enveloped the 2 of them. Then he took out 3 pills that were as white as jade. These are the soul strengthening and condensing pills that my father made. They were one of the most extraordinary pills in the Star Palace. After my father passed away, my mother made them. Take them. They are 100 times more precious than the immortal essence pills. Young master, they're too precious. The latter hurriedly shook his head. Baby Snoring said and forced it over. Fortunately, you came with us this time. We have to save our energy to leave this place. This bow was also made by my father. Before I was born, he spent tens of thousands of years in the Star Palace's forbidden area for refining weapons. He spent a lot of resources to make it. It is a good doctrine artifact. With it, most immortals can't do anything to us. It is indeed a good doctrine artifact. It is similar to the Ghost Tooth Square Chakram. Baby Snoring really loves children. He made such a treasure at such a young age. If I can go to the forbidden area for refining weapons, won't I be able to absorb the great pregnant purple energy? After sizing up the bell, he suddenly felt a sense of anticipation. He then asked curiously, I once heard that the Jianwu Manor was a holy land for refining weapons in the Yuan Lu Great World. Can our sect compare to the Jianwu Manor in terms of refining weapons? Jianwu Villa. Baby Snoring sat cross-legged and swallowed a spirit-strengthening and condensing pill. He snorted disdainfully. They're almost a second-rate force in the Yuan Lu Great World. Our sect has already had some contact with them. Their sword refining techniques are all right, but compared to our Star Palace, they're world apart. You will understand when you go to the forbidden area for refining weapons. He stopped asking. Su Fong sat on the other side and raised his eyebrows. I finally have a new goal in the constellation of 9 heavens. The first is to cultivate in the Star Palace, condense the power of the world, and merge with the world fragments to become stronger. The second is to enter the forbidden area for refining weapons to absorb the great pregnant purple energy and merge with the purple energy Dharma spirit. After swallowing a spirit-strengthening and condensing pill, the spiritual energy that burst out started to drive his vital energy to cultivate. There is also a primordial spirit flame that directly entered his divine aperture and merged with his young immortal, allowing him to cultivate on his own. Good pill. Just one pill was enough to restore Su Fong. Su Fong gave the remaining 2 to Green Feather King and Bai Ling. As for the undying turtle, he naturally gave him more immortal essence pills. He released the young immortal into the Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda. Although the current young immortal was also a primordial spirit, it was very lifelike and did not look any different from the original body. It did not look bright either. This was the young immortal of a young soul in a smaller world. They had a certain level of defense and sturdiness, and their physical abilities were even more shocking. Whether it was cultivation or other aspects, they were far superior to the young soul. Even when the young immortal left his body, he could survive in nature for a long time. The young immortal also had many uses. Cultivation was the most important. He could also be used to attack and track. Once he left his body, the young immortal would be intangible. He could fly through the void and track strong enemies. The Snow-Wing Bee liquid is really precious. I can only give it to some of the demon immortals. It's better to give the other big goblin immortal essence pills. He divided the large amount of bee liquid into granules and gave it to some of the big goblin. He would keep the rest for himself for the time being. Then, he began to absorb the power of the demon tree floating in the second level. In addition, he was also fusing with the 3 black sword talismans that Ao Yin Chanhen gave him. Not only did Su Fong recover, but if this continued, he would soon break through the 3rd Dao realm and step into the 4th Dao realm of the virtual immortal realm. He also fused with a drop of the snow-winged bee liquid and felt how strong the power of marrow cleansing was. The result made him very happy. It was actually 10 times stronger than the tier of immortal essence he obtained from the gold-silver flame mountain. It was indeed a treasure. During this period of time, he, Bai Ling, the Green Feather King, the Undying Turtle, and the other big goblin strength would definitely improve. About half a year passed. Baby Snoring put away the bell and went out with Su Fong again. They wanted to leave the Mirror Moon Barren Land. However, when they flew out of this cliff, there was another gust of wind. However, this gust of wind was not too scary. The two of them carefully left and entered an endless forest. When they arrived, the two of them felt a lot of true qi. It seemed like there were many cultivators in this forest. As they went deeper, they saw some immortals resting in different parts of the forest. After asking around, they found out that one side of the forest was the exit of the Mirror Moon Barren Land. The two of them quickly flew over. They really wanted to leave this barren land. It was really not a place where immortals like them could survive. It's 2 disciples from the constellation of 9 heavens. One of them is just an ordinary virtual immortal. The other is very powerful and will be a little troublesome. It seems like that child has a very high status and must have a lot of treasures. Suddenly, more than 10 immortals appeared behind the two of them. These immortals looked in front of them. We were just planning to leave the Mirror Moon Barren Land and will not come here again. It will be difficult to meet immortals from the constellation of 9 heavens again. In for a penny, in for a pound. Kill the two of them, take their treasures, and leave. Okay. Even if their identities are not simple, the constellation of 9 heavens will not be able to chase after us after killing them. Moreover, this is the supreme void. The astral palace will not be able to find us in the boundless void. A man can't be rich without a windfall. Let's do this one last time. More than 10 immortals immediately formed hand seals and chased after them. The forest flew backward. Frightening air currents could be seen in the sky, as if they were following the two of them. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Who knew? Baby Snoring was flying on his sword, as usual. Suddenly, sword lights came from above and around him. On the sword lights stood immortals with killing intent. Not good. Su Fong saw these sword lights and immediately knew who they were. Baby Snoring was stunned. When he heard Su Fong's voice transmission, he suddenly increased the speed of his flying sword. Whoosh! The speed of his flying sword increased significantly. In an instant, he overtook more than 10 immortals who were chasing after him. Humph! Baby is not an ordinary person. Baby Snoring was very pleased with himself. He rubbed his nose and was not satisfied. However, 2 of the immortals were also increasing their speed. They immediately caught up. Sure enough, there are 2 experts. Snoring Baby's eyebrows immediately constricted in astonishment. Fire Wave Poison Star Talisman. Who knew? Baby Snoring was increasing his speed when the two immortals suddenly threw out star-like runes. Fire Wave Poison Star Rune. Protection. After hearing this, Baby Snoring suddenly pressed his palm down. A bell hung upside down, protecting Su Fong and Baby Snoring in the air. Pa more than 10 runes exploded around the bell like a meteor explosion. The shockwaves came from the bell's defensive layer. It sizzled as it was burned by the burning poisonous gas. The first impression it gave was that the bell was unable to protect the two of them. However, this worry was unnecessary. After the burning poisonous gas exploded, it could not even penetrate the protective layer. What a good Tao artifact! More than 10 immortals formed a circle about 10 zhang away. Their gazes were all attracted by the bell. This kid's identity is definitely not simple. Who cares who he is? Everyone, use your Tao artifacts to attack that magic treasure's defensive aura. Wear down this kid's vital energy. When he is unable to use his magic treasure, it will be ours. Rustle, rustle, rustle. After the two strongest immortals finished speaking, they ordered the people around them to take out their magic treasures and release immortal light from their Tao artifacts. The two of them seemed to be in a burning whirlpool of immortal light. When Baby Snoring saw so many magic treasures, his vital energy immediately exploded. Su Fong suddenly came up with an idea. Young master, we can't fight them head-on. I have a blood ghost that contains a special poisonous gas. We can use poison to deal with them. The blood ghost is a treasure of demonic cultivators. Will it work? We'll know once we try. My cultivation is too weak. Young master, use the blood poison. In front of Baby Snoring, a shocking amount of black blood poison gushed out from Su Fong's right palm. Chapter 9:14. The two experts had already controlled all the immortal lights from the Tao artifacts, causing them to surge like thousands of horses, engulfing the two of them. Little brat, if you don't behave yourself and hand over the treasures, Xing can spare your life. Baby Snoring released a shocking amount of blood poison. He curled his lips, bared his teeth, and licked his nose. How dare you steal my Tao? Little brat, you're tired of living. Tut, tut, tut. Suddenly, dozens of immortal lights from the Tao artifact appeared in a distorted state in the air. They danced in the air, causing the air to burn with flames. They pressed fiercely towards the center, striking the defensive barrier released by the bell one after another. Pate felt like a whip, striking again and again. The barrier was very sturdy, and there was no movement, especially the bell, which floated motionlessly in the air. Good fellow. Seeing that the immortal lights were unable to penetrate the barrier, Su Fong calmed down. He was panicking before, but now he could relax. Under Baby Snoring's powerful cultivation and combined with the bell's activation, the blood poison dispersed through the barrier. The strange thing was that if it was a normal poison gas, it would have been dispersed by the attacks of the immortal lights. However, although the blood poison was also torn apart by the immortal lights, it was still corroded by the immortal lights. Furthermore, a large amount of the blood poison dispersed into the surroundings, like a poisonous cloud rising in the sky. Baby Snoring saw this and smiled proudly. Hee, you're amazing. You're too amazing. Su Fong continued to shoot blood poison from his right palm. He said humbly, I've been collecting all kinds of poisons for my blood ghost to combine. That's why it has such a unique blood poison. From now on, don't call yourself my little brother. From now on, you're my little brother, Huang Fu Bao Bao. I'm your big brother. From now on, in the 9 Heaven Star Palace, if I eat, you will drink. Okay, boss. I like it when people call me boss. As for Huang Fu and Xiao Yue, as long as you're by my side at all times, those people can't do anything to you. As your boss, I have to protect you no matter what. Thank you, boss. Since baby Huang Fu was happy, Su Fong would think of ways to make him even happier. There was nothing to lose by calling him boss. The most important thing was that baby Huang Fu would really treat him as someone close to him in the future. It would be beneficial for him to cultivate in Huang Fu Peak and eventually become a powerhouse. He knew that even though Baby Snoring was a young master and was a little arrogant, he was not a bad person. As long as he could make him happy, everything would fall into place. Baby Snoring had an elder grandfather in the constellation of 9 heavens. He was no ordinary person and could do whatever he wanted. This was also an invisible shield that protected Su Fong. After the time it takes half an incense stick to burn, the area within a kilometer had been transformed into a blood poison. Occasionally, the immortal light from the magical treasures would attack, but it posed no threat to the two of them. With this bell, it was actually a life-saving talisman. At this moment, Su Fong suggested, "We can take advantage of the blood poison. Boss, find an opening and escape." Baby Snoring frowned. "Why should we escape? Didn't they rob us halfway? Are they very arrogant? We have to show them what we're capable of. My blood ghost can't release the blood poison indefinitely. Moreover, boss, activating the magical treasures will consume your vital energy. They won't be able to do anything to us for a while, but if we continue to exhaust our vital energy, we'll be the ones at a disadvantage in the end. This is the best time for us to escape. There's no need to fight with these bandits. Don't forget that young Master Tianyun and young Master Crouching Immortal are still laughing at us. I just can't accept it. I've always been the bully. No one can bully me, not even young Master Tianyun and the others. Boss, there's so many bandits like this. We can't kill all of them. Besides, they don't know who you are. All right, I'll listen to you. Your suggestions always turn danger into safety." Baby Snoring, who was not convinced, pinched the tip of his nose. He suddenly agreed without hesitation. Although he was still a little unhappy, he immediately controlled the bell and stepped on his flying sword. Together with Su Fong, he slowly moved to the edge of the blood fog, avoiding the attacks of the magical treasures. At this moment, the magical treasures' immortal lights were like flying knives, slashing from above and from all directions. Fortunately, they could control the blood poison and dodge the immortal light's attacks. They were only 10 feet away from the blood poison. Because of the blood poison, the immortals' senses were restricted. The experts on the outside could not see what was happening inside the blood poison. Baby Snoring's grape-like eyes stared at an immortal outside the blood poison who was activating his immortal sword. He said, "Hee, it's this unlucky fellow. He's just an ordinary spirit immortal, not a cave immortal expert." Cave immortal, Su Fong looked at the immortal. His strength was indeed similar to some of the spirit immortal slaves shackled. He was not very frightening. He had some impression of the cave immortal realm. It was a realm above the essence immortal and spirit immortal realms. This was because the cave immortal realm was the first realm where the immortals in the immortal world started to cultivate the power of heaven and earth. Starting from the cave immortal realm, they had to open a hole in their body and absorb the power of the stars. In other words, they had to start absorbing the power of the cultivation world. Essence immortals and spirit immortals were still ordinary immortals. They mainly cultivated their bodies and young immortals. A cave immortal was an immortal who could survive in the great world. They were called experts. It was obvious that Baby Snoring was a cave immortal. Flying Star, Killing Sword. After forming a seal, Baby Snoring suddenly flicked his finger at the expert. Swoosh! The blood poison only caused a bloody shadow to appear. A trace of aura shot out. "Let's go." Baby Snoop sucked the bell into its palm, and with a slap of its flying sword, it carried Su Fong out of the blood poison as fast as a sword chief flying through the air. Poof! A bloody hole suddenly appeared between the eyebrows of the bandit holding the immortal sword. In the next second, more than half of his head was gone. Blood flowed like boiling water. Before the two of them flew past the corpse, Su Fong suddenly released a claw seal and sucked the corpse into his palm. Baby Snoring was confused. "Why do you need a corpse?" "For my blood ghost to cultivate. My blood ghost loves to eat corpses. It will eat as many as it can. The more it eats, the stronger it will be. Demonic items are indeed powerful. Let's go." The sword force suddenly shot out a stream of sword energy. In an instant, the two of them escaped into the depths of the forest. After a few breaths, a few bandits appeared around the blood poison. When they realized that something was wrong, they were nowhere to be seen. However, they still looked around crazily. A stream of sword energy spiraled through the sky above a mountain ridge that was hidden in the clouds. Baby Snoring constantly looked behind him, afraid that something would happen. It's an exit. Su Fong was pleasantly surprised when he saw a natural cave exit in the void. I'll ask Big Sis to bring me a forest ginseng flower when we get out. Young Master Tianyun and Young Master Crouching Immortal schemed against me. I'll scheme against them too. Boss, we've been delayed for a few days. If we really want to scheme against them, we have to continue our journey. That's the only way we can reach the constellation of 9 heavens first. I understand what you mean. This time, I have to make good use of this opportunity to suppress young Master Tianyun and show the rest of the family. Let's fly straight back to the training hall. After a few words, they flew out of the cave, floating in the void on their swords. They soon arrived at the familiar, boundless void. Behind them was the Mirror Moon Wasteland, which had countless caves. This trip to the wasteland was probably something Baby Snoring would never forget for the rest of his life. The two of them were not afraid of the air currents. With Baby Snoring, a cave immortal, Su Fong did not need to expend much of his true qi. He was also secretly cultivating, preparing to reach the 4 Dao virtual immortal realm. In less than 5 years, the ancient ruins in the outer realm appeared in the depths of heaven and earth. A sword current was drawn in. Baby Snoring and Su Fong brought along the cold air of the stars. It only took them 4 years to return from the Mirror Moon Wasteland. Huangfu Peak. A passageway appeared. The two of them flashed and arrived at the side peak beside the main peak. Go back and cultivate. I'll go and see my elder sister. I think my mother has returned as well. Once I get the foreskin flower, I'll go to the Heavenly Cloud Cave. Later, I'll ask for some benefits from you. Baby Snoring left alone. Su Fong was eager to stay here and cultivate. He quickly returned to his room. He created layers of barriers and sent the servants away. Not long after, tribulation aura exploded from his body, burning even more fiercely. His skin seemed to have been severely injured. It began to tear, forming red spots as if he had been splashed with boiling water. Boom! A violent aura turned into 4 layers of tribulation aura. He could not control his body and blasted out. The impurities in his placenta spewed out in large amounts. The advancement of the virtual immortal realm is not like the small world where one has to undergo tribulation at every step. However, when I reach the peak of the virtual immortal realm, I'm afraid the tribulation I have to face at the last step is indescribable. I'll think about that at the end. In short, with my ability to surpass realms, the tribulation should not be the biggest problem. Increasing my strength is the most important thing. Before I get the third part of the purple aura Dharma spirit, I should let the purple aura Dharma spirit in my right arm absorb more primordial purple aura. Once the purple aura Dharma spirit fuses with the purple aura Dharma spirit, it will be easier to control the purple aura Dharma spirit. The breakthrough was bringing about an indescribable advancement storm. Fortunately, there was an array in the room. Otherwise, this palace would have been swallowed by the advancement storm and razed to the ground. A month later, Baby Snoring personally came to Su Fong. In the end, he brought a piece of good news that surprised Su Fong. He was now an official disciple and no longer a servant disciple. After asking, he found out that Baby Snoring went to his grandfather. He went through the back door and cried, threw a tantrum, and got an official disciple token. This works too. Su Fong was really impressed by this young master. He could even cry, throw a tantrum, and threaten to hang himself in the cultivation world. I can make you an official disciple, but you have to carry out a mission. There are many servant disciples and in-name disciples in the training hall. The mission to become an official disciple is not easy. I can't help you with this. At this moment, he arrived at Baby Snoring's palace. In the main hall, Baby Snoring was bored. Although my grandfather dotes on me, he will not let me override the sex rules. You have to carry out the mission yourself. Otherwise, I can still go and have some fun with you. With me around, any mission will be a piece of cake. Have some fun? How can this be fun? The mission of an official disciple was a test of life and death. They had to risk their lives. You don't know, but this time, we really came back half a month earlier than young Master Tianyan and young Master Wulongxian. Hee hee, we were all stunned. I openly showed the Lin Canhua to everyone at Heavenly Cloud Cave, and they didn't fall into their trap. This was all thanks to you. That's why I had to help you get an official identity. With it, Uncle Huangfu Duan won't be able to take your life openly. Awe-inspiring. This time, I've had enough awe-inspiring. Follow me. You'll have a good life in the future. In the main hall, Baby Snoring was the only one talking. He was talking to himself and was very unhappy. When Su Fong returned to his room, he had already fused with the official disciple token. Needless to say, this official disciple identity came at the right time. After becoming an official disciple, he could go anywhere in the constellation of 9 heavens. He continued to consolidate his 4 virtual immortal realms and increase his overall strength. After a while, he would go and accept a mission and become an official disciple. Then he could cultivate in the constellation of 9 heavens with peace of mind. As for Huangfu Yanhai and Huangfu Duan, he would not have to worry about them playing tricks behind his back. Chapter 9:15. After stabilizing his cultivation, he bade farewell to Baby Snoring. Before leaving Huangfu Mountain, Baby Snoring gave him a few more spirit-strengthening and core-concentrating pills. Su Fong did not have any immortal pills that could compare to the spirit-strengthening and core-concentrating pills. Baby Snoring insisted on going on a mission with Su Fong. However, under Su Fong's insistence, he gave up in the end. The constellation of 9 heavens. In the deepest part of the 9 great dojos, there were many layers of barriers. Official disciples could activate their tokens and pass through the barriers to reach the constellation of 9 heavens, Stellar Peak. When Su Fong arrived at Stellar Peak, he saw that there were many other peaks in the surroundings. There were countless powerful auras that belonged to Baby Snoring. To Su Fong, every immortal here was far more powerful than him. At the peak of Stellar Peak, there was a huge palace. It only had 1 floor. The palace was also 10,000 feet tall. It was like a triangular golden wall that suddenly appeared at the peak of the mountain. This stellar peak can control all the world's power in this world. It's so scary and shocking. What kind of immortal can control such a world's power? He sensed another indescribable world's power. The stellar peak was filled with the world's original aura, essence, and origin power. If it was a Dharma treasure that could bring the world's power to Stellar Peak, it would definitely be a top-tier Dharma treasure. If it was an immortal who could control the world's power of Stellar Peak, this immortal would be even more powerful than a peerless Dharma treasure. Just from the outside, the constellation of 9 heavens was already so extraordinary. Just as Out Yin Chanhan had said, one could only know the true appearance of the constellation of 9 heavens after becoming a powerful immortal. There were many disciples in Stellar Peak. Almost all of them were spirit immortals or cave immortals like Baby Snoring. There was not a single servant disciple or in-name disciple. It was also Su Fong's first time seeing so many powerful immortals. Now that he thought about it, most of the immortals who had gone to the small world in the lower realm were only spirit immortals. In the great world, they could only be considered immortals. At the front of the main hall, the inconspicuous Su Fong stepped in and was shocked by the 2 stone statues. Stone statue. 2 stone statues, one on the left and one on the right, stood on either side of the hall. They were 3,000 meters tall and were covered with immortal runes that contained the true energy of the 9 heavenly stars palace. Although they looked like stone statues, Su Fong could sense an indescribable power of the world, as well as the divine might of a young immortal. This is a protector, also known as a punisher. At this time, Law's thoughts came from the blood jade deep in his flesh. Any large power will have this kind of punisher. It looks like a stone statue, but it's actually a true divinity magic treasure forged by a true expert using their own magic power and true body. It's incredible when activated. True God treasure. It's similar to the God's Descent technique. It's a higher-level divine ability. Once you become a young immortal and reach a higher realm, you'll be able to use this great divine ability. Continue to get closer. I haven't encountered a great world sect that mainly cultivates in the power of the world for a long time. Law muttered and sighed. Step by step, he walked under the stone statue. It was as if a real person had locked onto his entire body. In the middle of the two stone statues, a spirit stone floated. This spirit stone was similar to the small world's origin mirror. It could distinguish the identity and true appearance of every disciple who entered here. Once they were different from the records in the constellation of 9 heavens, the spirit stone would move, making it easier to identify them. This was the reason why they could not change their appearance and hide their identity in the great world. Fortunately, the spirit stone did not move at all after stepping over the stone statue. There were many other uses for the spirit stone. For example, it was used to guard against demonic cultivators, demon cultivators, and other sects who secretly sneaked into the constellation of 9 heavens to steal cultivation techniques. At this moment, behind the stone statue, at the entrance of the main hall, one of the 4 disciples on duty snorted at Su Fong. Disciple of Huangfu Peak, why are you here? Su Fong immediately handed over his token. Junior brother has just become an official disciple. I'm here today to receive a mission. That person took out the token and said, according to the rules, even official disciples are not allowed to step into the hall. Do you have any requirements for the mission? I don't dare to have any requirements. I just hope that you don't go too far from the dojo. With Junior Brother's realm, you will only die if you go to the distant void. The sect won't give a new disciple like you such a difficult mission. Wait here. That person threw the token into the main hall. An immortal inside took the token and disappeared in a mysterious, immortal light. Su Fong waited at the side and carefully sensed the aura around him. At this moment, some immortals came in and out. Some glanced at Su Fong, while others only glanced at him casually. These people were too powerful. Almost all of them were cave immortals. Baby snoring is really not simple. He reached the cave immortal realm in 1,000 years. As for those who ascended from the lower realm, they could only reach the spirit immortal or cave immortal realm in tens of thousands of years. Insignificant. This was Su Fong's only thought at this moment. Those who ascended were extraordinary. However, those who ascended from the heavenly road to the great world had problems surviving. Their fate was always controlled by the great immortal realm. How many years did they have to struggle before they could truly reach the next level? About 6 hours later, the token was sent out from the main hall. Su Fong left with the token. When he flew, he pushed the token. There was a seal inside. The mission was to go outside the constellation of 9 heavens dojo. In the void, there was a material world. He had to find a few types of origin stones. He had to find a certain number of origin stones to complete the mission. This mission was not difficult. However, for a low-level immortal who had just become an official disciple, it was not easy to leave the dojo alone and enter the void. There was a lot of natural power in the void. Moreover, flying for a long time consumed a lot of immortal power. When he returned to Huangfu Peak, he bid farewell to baby snoring and activated the token alone. At this moment, on a nearby mountain peak, the main peak where the hidden Tiger Valley used to be, Huangfu Duan suddenly brought a few immortals to the top of the forest. 2 of you, go and get rid of that Huangfu Shaoying. The other one, cooperate. Don't leave any traces behind. This matter must be done secretly. You are not Huangfu disciples. If you do this well, I will let you enter the upper echelons of the clan. Sir, don't worry. Killing an ant like this is a piece of cake. The 2 immortals immediately flew out with triumphant smiles on their faces. Huangfu Yanhai, you and I are fighting for the position of future elder. How could I lose to you? You want to use this matter to make an issue out of Huangfu Huaying and suppress my power in the clan. Your calculations are too good. After getting rid of this cultivator called Su Fong, you can't do anything to me. Next time, I will create an opportunity to make things difficult for you. Huangfu Duan rubbed his chin in the clouds, then turned and fled into the depths of the mountain peak, outside the barrier of the constellation of 9 heavens. After passing through the last barrier, Su Fong arrived at the desolate land of the ruins. The constellation of 9 heavens was able to establish a foothold in such an ancient and dangerous land of ruins. It was naturally extraordinary. After a few hours, he finally left the continent of the ruins. When he arrived in the void, the shackles began to increase by several times. Su Fong could only fly on his sword slowly in the complicated airflow. Screech, in less than half a day, he suddenly heard 2 very unnatural movements coming closer and closer behind him. Out of caution, he deliberately sensed it. He did not expect that it was 2 cultivators who were almost constantly increasing their speed as they chased after him. Perhaps they were not here for him. Su Fong even deliberately took a detour and flew to another part of the void. However, the 2 auras still chased after him. They're here for me. I have great enemies in the Astral Palace. The first is Huangfu Duan, and the second is that Huangfu Yanhai. Who cares who he is? Since he wants to harm me, why should I be polite? I'll just kill these 2 spirit immortals and devour their powers together with the big goblin. A domineering aura that he had not seen in a long time shot out from his eyes. The void trembled. He increased his speed and flew toward the nebula in front of him. As expected, he sensed that the 2 figures had increased their speed by quite a bit. They had completely surpassed him. He estimated that they would catch up in a short while. He entered the nebula. This nebula was not big, but there were many ruins. He immediately released more than 10 slaves and used his world divine might. In addition to his natal divine might, he hid behind a large rock with an earth elemental aura. He released some sealed blood poison into the surrounding nebula. In just a few breaths, 2 black-robed immortals entered the nebula on their swords. They slowed down. They searched the nebula one after another. Su Fong could clearly see that they were disciples of the constellation of 9 heavens. They were spirit immortals. They were just ordinary official disciples. Su Fong began to use the power of more than 10 spirit immortal slaves to seal the various sealed blood poisons hidden in the nebula. They gradually gathered towards the 2 of them. Where are they? Could it be that they found out that we purposely used this nebula to shake us off? That can't be. Didn't this person just become an official disciple from servant disciple? He's also a low-level essence immortal. How could he possibly find us? We should be careful. It seems like Lord Huangfu asked us to kill an essence immortal. Under normal circumstances, he would send a stronger and more trustworthy disciple to kill this person. That's the right thing to do. I also feel that there's something wrong with what you said. At first, I thought that killing an essence immortal was just a simple task. There was no need for an expert to do it. Since we're here, we should think of a way to get rid of this person. Only then can we return to the training hall and give Lord Huangfu an explanation. The 2 of them could not find a trace of him. As he flew slowly, he looked around at the people around him, and he felt a little uneasy. Whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, a nebula airflow surrounded the 2 of them. It did not seem like an attack. However, a large amount of blood-red light suddenly burst out from the nebula. It's poison. The 2 of them were instantly trapped in the blood-red light. They were not attacked. However, they screamed in horror and struggled to break free from the blood-red light. When half of their bodies were exposed, their skin had already started to rot and fall off. They summoned their Dharma treasures to attack the blood-red light. They also released their domains to force the blood-red light out layer by layer. Their domains were really effective. Although the blood poison was powerful, it could not override space. However, domains could control space and make it move, peel it off, or shatter it. Kill! Su Fong suddenly ordered. More than 10 spirit immortal slaves flew out from behind him. Each of them struck out with a large number of palm prints. With lightning speed, they successfully launched a sneak attack and swallowed the 2 immortals. It should be Huangfu Duan who wants to kill me. Huangfu Yanhai only wants me to live. He won't want me to die in the hands of Huangfu Duan. He leaped out and looked at the dozen slaves dealing with 2 spirit immortals. There was only numbness and pride on his face. This meant that Su Fong was even more cautious. This kind of thing had to be settled through battle. He struck out a seal and grabbed the 2 immortal corpses from the remaining blood poison. He sucked them into his palm along with the surrounding blood poison. The last time I got a banded immortal corpse, it has already been eaten by the big goblin. This time, it won't take long to get 2 corpses. In addition, the Blood Ghost True Demon also needs a large amount of immortal flesh. On the other hand, I can't absorb much energy at all. You overestimate yourself. After mocking them, Su Fong left the nebula. About 5 days later, he finally stepped into a material plane marked by the mission. This material plane was not very big, but it was about the size of Huangfu Peak. Chapter 9:16. Although these small objects in the void were not dangerous, Su Fong still walked on thin ice as he searched for the ores recorded in the mission. The ores were easy to find, but there were not many of them. It seemed that completing the mission would not be easy. After 5 years, Su Fong was finally ready to leave. This time, not only did he find enough ores, but he also collected more ores. He wanted to find a way to improve the quality of his treasures. He wanted to improve the quality of the Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda, the Starry Daylight Sword, and the Flaming Cloud Spirit Gourd. He rode on his sword and rushed towards the constellation of 9 heavens. A month later, he returned to the training hall. After completing the mission, his token had many more immortal patterns and seals. Now, he was a part of the constellation of 9 heavens. As an official disciple, he could walk in this huge training hall with his head held high. At the side peak of Huangfu, I waited 5 years for you to come back. I was in seclusion waiting for you. In the main hall, baby Huangfu heard that Su Fong was back and hurriedly came out from the backyard. Of course, Su Fong would not say that he killed the disciples sent by Huangfu. Those 2 immortals were official disciples of the constellation of 9 heavens. If anyone caught them, not only would they lose their footing, they would also be locked up in a place like the Sin Concealing Cave. Baby Snoopy bestowed a palace to Su Fong. As of this moment, Su Fong was no longer an ordinary disciple who could possess a palace of his own and instantly become a person who stood above the rest. After cultivating for a while, Su Fong realized that although baby Snoring was a spoiled brat, he would still cultivate diligently. It was just that his Tao heart was not focused, and he was easily distracted. These 2 immortals also have some resources. I want these immortal pills. Some of the resources are also mine. However, the treasures they used should be sealed for now. Once they are used in the constellation of 9 heavens, it will be troublesome. Inside Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda, using his mystique, he began to refine the corpses of the 2 immortals into countless pieces and distributed them to the tens of thousands of big goblins, especially the big goblins who had yet to become immortals. Even a little bit of power would be of great use to them. This is depressing. Tens of thousands of big goblin are cultivating all the time. I don't have many immortal pills and resources left. If this goes on, I'll definitely become a pauper. If I want to get out of this situation, I have to either buy resources or find a cauldron to refine more impotence pills. In the end, the best solution is to concoct the pills yourself. For example, baby Snoring's bloodline is probably because of the soul-strengthening and concentrating pills that they have such a high status in the Huangfu clan. Gradually, Su Fong, who had been cultivating smoothly in the great immortal realm, encountered a problem. It wasn't his problem. Did he really have 3 profound sword talismans from proud heaven chanting hatred? As well as a tree demon, they did not lack resources. However, there were tens of thousands of big goblin in their bodies. Their cultivation was not like Su Fong's, who had world fragments, so it was relatively easier for them to cultivate. The big goblin needed resources, whether it was by Ling, the undying turtle, the green feather king, or the vermilion emperor. Moreover, there were many big goblins who had yet to become immortals. He was not alone now. He had to raise a family. Especially if this went on for a long time, the tree demon would finish devouring the energy and only have 3 profound sword talismans left. Su Fong also had to start preparing for a rainy day. Fortunately, he had collected some resources now, such as immortal tear stones, black sea stones, and so on, especially the snow-winged poisonous bee's spirit fluid. Let's go to Drifting Cloud Lake for a walk. On this day, baby Snoring shouted from the periphery. When Su Fong arrived outside the main hall, he saw babies snoring gathered more than 10 disciples. They were all spirit immortals and also disciples who followed baby snoring. Flowing Cloud Lake. It should not be one of 9 great dojos. After everyone flew out of Huangfu Peak, Su Fong learned that Flowing Cloud Lake was a place where disciples from the constellation of the 9 heavens traded privately. In the constellation of the 9 heavens, it was the busiest place. So there's such a place. Half an hour later, they suddenly arrived at a place where clouds floated. When all the clouds merged together, it looked like a cloud river. This was Flowing Cloud Lake. After entering deep into the lake, they arrived at a mountain range. There were many caves halfway up the mountain. There were also many disciples lazily flying into those caves. There were many disciples in the caves. Su Fong heard that they were also trading privately. They were either Dharma treasures or cultivation techniques. Most of them were pills and other treasures. Before entering the caves, there were many disciples. Su Fong asked around and found out that some people were holding a public auction at Flowing Cloud Lake today to auction some special items. No wonder baby snoring was in high spirits. Was he in a group? Han Jia, Liao, Kong Carbuncle, Ichio Hua Yi, Feed. Su Fong saw many disciples here. They were all spirit immortals. There were also some virtual immortals. There were even more cave immortals. Almost all of them were spirit immortals and cave immortals. He also saw some familiar faces, such as Huangfu Hao from Tiger Subdue Valley, Young Master Tianyin from Heavenly Cloud Cave, and Young Master Wasian from Wasian Valley. There were also some young master and young mistresses from other dojos. Most of them were male disciples. Among them, the female disciples attracted a lot of attention. Su Fong found an excuse to walk around alone. Previously, he thought that many of the caves would be open. In the end, he was wrong. Almost the entire mountain peak was hollowed out. Every cave could be entered and exited. There were all kinds of people here, from menial disciples to cave immortals. There were also some cave immortals who hid their strength and searched for treasures. Su Fong began to look for common items, as well as some extraordinary materials that could improve the quality of Dharma treasures. It was really easy to find. After all, every disciple here could take out something to exchange. Naturally, there were all kinds of treasures, with black sea stones, immortal tear stones, as well as some immortal stones and origin stones. Su Fong began to exchange with some disciples for what he wanted. Unfortunately, he wasn't a tycoon. When he saw many pills, he wanted them. Unfortunately, he didn't have the money. He was now a pauper. Senior Sister Wang, can you give me fewer flying swords? In the depths, there was an open platform built with some spirit stones. Many cave, immortal disciples surrounded it. As soon as Su Fong arrived, he was attracted by the large number of spirit stones. When he came to the side, he saw a storage ring floating on the platform. The storage ring actually shot out a beam of spirit light. Thousands of items floated inside, from immortal pills to flying swords and talismans. There were all kinds of ores. This was simply a small merchant guild. The person in charge of the storage ring was a woman. Her cultivation level was very shocking. At the very least, she wasn't a cave immortal. Moreover, her status was not simple. The surrounding cave immortals bowed to her. Su Fong asked around and learned that this woman was Wang Yuzhen, a disciple of one of the 9 great Taoist halls Bodhi spiritual world. The Bodhi spiritual world was a very special place among the 9 great Taoist halls. Most of the disciples there were female. Moreover, the Bodhi spiritual world was an ordinary spiritual world. It was sealed with a spirit formation technique. It was very mysterious. The disciples of the other Taoist halls couldn't casually enter. Furthermore, the Bodhi spiritual world was one of the best among the 9 great Taoist halls. After Huangfu Peak, Heavenly Cloud Cavern, and Sleeping Immortal Valley, Su Fong took a closer look. Wang Yuzhen was a national beauty. She had a peerless appearance that surpassed most women. In the end, Su Fong got to know that Wang Yuzhen's sister was a beauty that every man in Star Palace adored after listening to the others' conversation. Let alone in the 9 heavens starry palace. Even in the countless great immortal worlds, she was a stunning beauty that could topple cities and countries. The surrounding cave immortal disciples were not only here to buy things, but also because of Wang Yuzhen's beauty. Let's go. The auction is starting. Let's go watch the show. At that moment, a commotion came from the center. The surrounding disciples all rushed towards the center. Suddenly, only Su Fong was left looking at the large amount of items. What's wrong? The fairy-like Wang Yuzhen glanced at Su Fong. Seeing that he was an ordinary virtual immortal disciple, she asked indifferently, "Junior brother, what do you want to buy?" "Senior sister." At that moment, Su Fong looked around. It was already empty. He bowed to her. "I need some items that could be upgraded to magic treasures." "Senior sister, do you have any low-grade pill cauldrons?" Wang Yuzhen was slightly startled. "Pill cauldrons? You are currently an ordinary disciple. You cannot become a core disciple. You cannot go to the forbidden area of the sect to learn pill refining techniques. However, with your hard work, you will go there sooner or later. Why are you in a hurry to learn pill refining techniques now?" Obviously, she still had a lot to say. However, she did not want to hurt Su Fong, so she did not say anything else. Su Fong stepped forward. "If senior sister has a pill cauldron, I can try my best to buy one. There's a lot of snow-winged, poisonous bees spiritual liquid here. I could buy a very good Tao artifact. I could give it to senior sister first as a deposit. Senior sister can help me find a pill cauldron. As long as its quality is not high, it will be fine. If I can't continue to buy it, senior sister will not lose out. You can sell it. I believe there will be no need to worry about selling it." After saying that, he took out a storage ring and handed it over to her. Wang Yuzhen did not want to continue talking to Su Fong. However, seeing that this ordinary disciple was so serious, she did not want to be rude. She still released her consciousness into the storage ring. Suddenly, she raised her eyebrows. "It really is snow-winged poisonous bees spiritual liquid. Where did you get so much? This is enough to buy a peak mid-grade Tao artifact. I got it by accident. Senior sister, can you help me? I promise that if I can't buy a pill cauldron within 100 years, this snow-winged poisonous bees spiritual liquid will be the compensation for senior sister's lost time. Pill cauldrons are not easy to find, especially since our constellation of 9 heavens is located in the depths of outer space. You can only buy a pill cauldron from a nearby great world. It will take a long time to get there. Although your snow-winged poisonous bees spiritual liquid is a treasure, it is only enough for my people to travel back and forth. We are all from the same sect, so I don't want to take advantage of you. Even an ordinary pill cauldron is shockingly expensive. It is at least 10,000 times more valuable than the snow-winged poisonous bees spiritual liquid. I'll have to trouble you, senior sister. All right, I'll help you. If you can't come up with the money to buy it in 100 years, don't blame me. What's your name? Which training ground do you cultivate in?" Wang Yuzhen finally agreed, but she did not seem to take it seriously. She even went through the procedures to record Su Fong's background. Finally, she put away the storage ring and disappeared. Su Fong also came to the center with great difficulty and entered the crowd. Suddenly, Baby Snoring's proud laughter resounded through the cave. "I want this deep-sea serene flower. 100,000 immortal essence pills. You want to buy the deep-sea serene flower for 100,000? It will only bloom after 100,000 years. Although it is not very useful for cultivation, it is still a rare treasure. I offer 300,000 immortal essence pills." Another voice was even more proud. 500,000. Baby Snoring's shocking bid sounded again. 600,000. 800,000. Baby Snoring seemed to have to get the deep-sea serene flower. He shouted domineeringly, "I will give in to whoever offers 1,000,000 immortal essence pills. Young Master Tianyan, what do you think? Are you willing to pay 1,000,000 immortal essence pills?" He was too arrogant. In front of tens of thousands of disciples, Baby Snoring floated in the air above the countless disciples. In the middle, he was competing with several noble youths to buy a purple-blue spiritual flower. He's crazy. These young master are rich. Not to mention 100,000 immortal essence pills. Even 10,000 immortal essence pills is a big number for us. Huangfu Peak has their own spirit strengthening and condensing pills. They're not short of money. The surrounding disciples kept talking. Chapter 9:17. Junior brother Xiaoying. Su Fong squeezed through the crowd and came to baby Snoring's side. More than a dozen followers greeted Su Fong politely. Now, everyone knew that baby Snoring's favorite person was Huangfu Xiaoying. Baby Snoring glanced at Su Fong and was very proud. He continued to shout to the rich disciples around him. Since no one is willing to pay 1,000,000 immortal essence pills, then this deep sea flower is mine. The disciples around did not raise the price anymore. In the end, baby Snoring got what he wanted. He got the deep sea flower that bloomed beautifully and had an amazing purple color. It was indeed a stunning spiritual flower. It was such a rare treasure. Unfortunately, it was not very helpful to cultivators' cultivation. Otherwise, the price would be more than 10 times more expensive than it was now. I'm in a good mood today. Baby Snoring immediately left with his followers in front of everyone. In midair, he looked at Su Fong carefully and looked at the deep sea flower. He was very proud. Last time, I asked my elder sister to help me buy the forest ginseng flower. It was quite troublesome for her. I always wanted to get something for her, but she has everything and is very powerful. Today, I'm so lucky to get such a rare treasure that only blooms once in 100,000 years. Along the way, baby Snoring stroked the deep sea flower. When they returned to the side peak, he ordered the others to disperse. He only took Su Fong and flew deeper into the side peak. This side peak was located in Huangfu's main peak. The area was also very large. Ordinary disciples could not enter this side peak. This was the training ground of the Huangfu higher-ups. They could only enter with permission. There were some palaces at the back. They were also the training grounds of the Huangfu clan's disciples. There was a very quiet cliff. The surroundings were surrounded by clouds and forests. There was a very obvious barrier that imprisoned this cliff. The barrier was very powerful. This was the most amazing barrier that Su Fong had encountered since he came to the constellation of 9 heavens. It could be seen that the person who set up the formation was an expert from the constellation of 9 heavens. In front of the barrier, baby Snoring slowed down and explained to Su Fong, "This is my big sister's dojo. My big sister is cold and doesn't like strangers. She has even less contact with the male disciples of the sect. You're her little brother, so it's different. Once you enter, don't make a fuss and embarrass me." "Yes, young master." Whoosh, baby Snoring pointed his finger at the barrier, leaving a mark on it. In a split second, a suction force gushed out from the barrier, wrapping him and Su Fong inside. There's also a cliff in front of him, but it was a cliff void filled with abundant world energy. Flowers bloomed around the cave on the cliff. Su Fong tried to use his great perfection ability to sense the cave, but to his surprise, his great perfection ability could not penetrate the barrier or sense the cave. It seemed that there were many other invisible formations in this world. Baby Snoring brought Su Fong around the cave and came to the back of the cliff. There was a palace in the middle of the cliff. It was built in the air with corridors and gardens. What a beautiful place. This was one immortals should have. They slowly came to the empty space in front of the palace. Baby Snoring brought Su Fong through the door. There was no one around, and the corridors were empty. It was clear that the owner of this place was someone who was cold to the bone. "All right, you can walk around outside. Just don't go inside. This is my big sister's temporary palace, and she has a dojo in the forbidden area." Baby Snoring left Su Fong in the corridor as he flew deeper into the palace. Su Fong walked around the corridor and looked around. If he were to cultivate here, his speed would be doubled. In the depths of the palace, Baby Snoop passed through a spell formation and entered the immortal clouds. Suddenly, he saw a woman in a white dress sitting cross-legged in the air above an altar that was filled with blossoming flowers. Shockingly, the aura around her was the power of the world, which slowly flowed into her forehead. The lady suddenly stopped cultivating. When she stood up and looked over, her beauty seemed to have frozen everything around her. "Baby, come here. Big sister." Baby Snoring was a little scared, but he obediently went to the altar. "I heard that you obtained the forest flower and gave young Master Tianyan a show of strength. Aren't you happy that you've run into trouble again? The woman's fair skin slowly turned rosy, and she looked like a flower bud that had just bloomed. Hee, I don't cause trouble every day. Besides, if they didn't talk about Daddy, I wouldn't have to deal with them. Baby snoring made a face and suddenly grabbed the deep sea flower. My big sister is the most beautiful woman in Star Palace. Only this deep sea flower is worthy of her. When the lady saw the deep sea flower, she was slightly stunned. You little brat, you even know about beauties. Should I wait until you're older and let me choose a girl for you? No. Sister is the most beautiful in the world. Although Wang Yuxian is beautiful, she's not half as beautiful as you. Wang Yuxian is also very beautiful, and her strength is also not bad. Even her younger sister, Wang Yuzhen, is also very beautiful. I don't like them. Does sister like the deep sea flower? I've heard that this spiritual flower only blooms once every 100,000 years, and it's in the deep sea. Deep sea flower. The lady raised her hand slightly, and the purplish-blue deep sea flower slowly spun in her palm. Rays of purple and blue spiritual light suddenly bloomed. It was very beautiful. It's also my first time seeing such a spiritual flower. You must have spent a lot of immortal elixirs. The lady showed her faint dimples and suddenly hugged baby snoring. Not much, just 800,000 immortal essence elixirs. You're really generous. For sister, how can I not be generous? Baby snoring was very naughty and knew how to talk. You're bribing me. If something happens in the future, I can speak for you in front of my mother and grandfather. The lady immediately kept the deep sea flower and suddenly looked outside. This is the first time you've brought a normal disciple here. He's the one who entered Mirror Moon Wasteland with you. It's him. He was called Su Fong before. Later, Uncle Yin Hai gave him the name Huang Fu Shaoying. Now he's my underling. You're still the boss. Why don't you cultivate properly? Don't talk to these flattering disciples. It's not good for you. Look at all the trouble you've caused these years. Huang Fu Shaoying is different. How is he different? He's just sucking up to you, using you, taking advantage of you, and getting benefits. He's really different. He told sister about his experience in Mirror Moon Wasteland last time. This time, when he went on a mission, I asked him to go with me. In the end, he went alone and completed the mission properly. Also, usually, he doesn't take the initiative to appear. He's always cultivating in the training hall. He's not like those people in the past who always sucked up to me, made me go cause trouble, and asked me for pills from time to time. But baby, for so long, Huang Fu Shaoying has never asked me for a single pill or asked me to do anything for him. What about the official disciples? I was the one who asked Grandpa. He didn't beg me. The lady didn't believe him. Really? Baby snoring patted his chest in the air. It's true. Why would I lie to sister? Although I haven't been to many places like sister, I was really scared to death during the trip to Mirror Moon Wasteland. However, Huang Fu Shaoying was calmer than me. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been able to leave the wasteland alone. All right, I believe you. But remember, don't trust a person so easily. Seeing him like this, the lady couldn't help but smile. Bang! At this moment, a dull explosion suddenly sounded from the other side. What's wrong? Baby snoring was startled and realized something. It's Huang Fu Shaoying that you brought here. Let's go. The lady suddenly rolled up her sleeves and disappeared with baby snoring. In a unique garden, in front of a big black rock, an old man in black suddenly confronted Su Fong. You're in trouble. Su Fong was very surprised. He looked at the old man in black and then at the black rock. He immediately explained, Senior, I didn't mean to do it. I only saw the strange sword patterns on the black rock and was curious, so I touched it. Since you're here, you should behave yourself. The old man suddenly released a wave of demonic qi. Demonic qi. Su Fong wasn't surprised. He seemed to know what kind of cultivator the old man was. However, the demonic qi suddenly entered his body and wrapped him up like a cocoon. Domain defense. Although it was an accident, Su Fong couldn't let the demonic qi injure his body for nothing. He released the demonic qi sealed in his golden core origin and activated the heavenly demon book. He let the demonic chi replace his vital chi and turn it into a demonic chi defense. Ah. The old man looked at the demonic chi in surprise. Su Fong also released his demonic chi and turned it into a human form to protect him. I didn't expect someone like you to exist. I didn't realize that you were a cultivator who cultivated both demonic chi and demonic chi at the Four Dao realm. The old man was shocked, but he still restrained Su Fong. Stop! Two figures appeared out of nowhere. They were the woman and baby snoring. Yes, master. When the old man heard the woman's order, he suddenly sucked the demonic chi into his mouth and retreated to the side, disappearing. Baby snoring rushed to Su Fong and shouted, I told you not to move. Why didn't you listen? Su Fong wanted to explain, especially when he hurriedly hid his demonic chi. Suddenly, he saw the woman in the white dress beside him. She was like a snow lotus that came from a world of ice and snow, aloof and extraordinary. He forgot where he was. Hey! A slap on Su Fong's shoulder brought him back to his senses. Baby snoring hurriedly said, This is my big sister. Hurry up and admit your mistake. Su Fong immediately bowed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. It's okay. Every man in the world acts like this when they see me. I'm already used to it. He didn't expect the woman to be so otherworldly. She looked down on all men in the world with just a few words. Let's go. Baby snoring dragged Su Fong and forcefully left the garden. Master, behind the black stone, the demonic elder appeared again. It's good that you didn't hurt him. After all, he's my man. The woman sat down and stared at the black stone's sword pattern. Why would he notice this black stone? Is it because he's also practicing demonic arts? I don't know either. There are only two possibilities for this person. The first is that he was attracted by the demonic chi in the black stone. The second is that it contains the world's essence. This is a treasure that Master uses to gather the world's essence. Many people have come here and never noticed how extraordinary this treasure is. The black stone is sealed by me. Normal people can't tell that it contains demonic chi. I've also sealed the world's essence. Outsiders can't tell either. Master, this kid seems to have some tricks up his sleeve. With him accompanying the young master, you can rest assured. I've only been cultivating for 1,000 years. I'm equivalent to a 10-year-old child in a small world. This is the first time I went to the Mirror Moon Wasteland alone. I almost lost my life there. The woman stood up. He's just a disciple. It doesn't matter if he has some abilities. Every disciple in the constellation of 9 heavens has some special tricks up their sleeves. If he can help me grow, I can nurture him in the future. If he's a cunning disciple, I'll just get rid of him secretly. With this indifference and certainty, the woman nodded. The elder disappeared into the black stone, and the woman disappeared as well. Chapter 9:18. Is my elder sister beautiful? Back in the main hall, Baby Snoring chuckled and stared at Su Fong. She is the #1 beauty in the constellation of 9 heavens. She is also a great beauty in countless worlds. I'm already used to seeing you act like that just now. Used to seeing him like that? How could a younger brother talk about his elder sister like that? Su Fong was stunned, but he did not feel awkward. She is really beautiful. Not only is she beautiful, but she is also very strong. The reason why I lost my composure was because of your elder sister's beauty. In our sect, if my elder sister is said to be second in beauty, no one would dare to say that she is first. Even that Wang Yuxian is also a great beauty, but she can't compare to my elder sister. Wang Yuxian is so familiar. Today at Flowing Cloud Lake, I also saw a living beauty called Wang Yuxian. Senior sister Yuxian is Wang Yuxian's younger sister. Of course she is beautiful. She is a disciple of the Bodhi spiritual world and is also the most popular person in our sect. If you want any treasures, just look for her. It is easy to talk to her since she is one of us. Don't have any ulterior motives. I won't. Be careful, or I will pull off your ear. It will go well with wine. This little one doesn't dare. This little one doesn't dare to have any improper thoughts about Big Mississippi. I am a toad on the ground, and Big Miss is a fairy in the sky. From now on, call me Brother Bao. Call me that. Okay, Brother Bao. Hee, that's more like it. From now on, you will call me Brother Bao. Hee, don't let others take advantage of you. If you can chase after my elder sister, that will be a good thing. I'm not worried about you. However, if you want to chase after my elder sister, you will not be able to do so without absolute strength. Brother Bao, don't let others take advantage of you. There was actually someone who said that about his elder sister. Su Fong was not only stunned, but also drunk. However, it was true. With that woman's beauty, she could make any man fall in love with her. He was also immortal, so how could he restrain himself? It was fine to say it, but Su Fong really did not have that kind of thought. When he returned to the palace, he asked the servants to leave and set up a barrier. He began to pick out all kinds of materials that he had bought at the Drifting Cloud Lake. Then, he put them into the small universe fairy flask and began to burn them with the illusory fire cloud. During this period of time, Su Fong was also cultivating without restraint. He activated the world fragment to absorb the power of the world in his dojo. Was he also secretly absorbing the power of the 3 mysterious sword talismans? The essence of. About half a month later, when most of the materials were about to melt into liquid, Su Fong released the Starry Daylight Sword, the Flaming Cloud Spiritual Gourd, and the Xianwang 6 Paths Pagoda, and burned them all with the illusory fire cloud. Another half a month passed. Who knew? Originally, he had planned to use the various spiritual liquids he had refined to water and upgrade the 3 magic treasures. However, he hadn't expected that a violent aura would suddenly surge from the depths of his body. When he took a closer look, he was greatly surprised. The 17th Yang Meridian is forming. This is great. Another Yang Meridian has been born. The constellation of 9 heavens is indeed extraordinary. In just a few years, I have cultivated another Yang Meridian. With this Yang Meridian and 2 more Yang Meridian, I can reach the height of the second transformation. With 18 Yang Meridian, my strength will be greatly enhanced again. With 1 more Yang Meridian, whether it is activating the world fragment, controlling nature's aura, controlling magic treasures, or controlling magic power, they will all be enhanced. This will allow my cultivation to undergo a great transformation. It turned out that another Yang Meridian had been successfully formed. There were 17 Yang Meridian in total. More importantly, the first transformation had 9 Yang Meridian. Then, the second transformation would have 18 Yang Meridian. By then, the transformation would be the same as the first transformation. He continued to use the pure Yang energy around him and also absorbed the pure Yin energy that seeped out of the origin essence sacred realm. He merged them and kept on attacking the Yang Meridian so that the Yang Meridian would solidify sooner. All the energy in his body surged into the 17 Yang Meridian. Although the world fragment was the ultimate essence of a cultivator's cultivation, at this moment, the 9 Yang transformation dominated everything. All the energy surged into the Yang Meridian. It's really timely. It's all thanks to the 3 Xian sword talismans that Ao Yin Chanhen gave me. I don't lack cultivation resources for the time being. However, I have to speed up my cultivation, which will require more extraordinary resources. My combat strength is still too weak. I can't activate the origin essence sacred realm or powerful Tao artifacts. If I want to increase my combat strength, I have to use the old method of capturing more big goblin and suppressing more puppets. It's already not easy for an ordinary person to control 2 immortal demons and a few puppets. Not every immortal has endless magic power and Yang immortal to control those puppets. However, I have the Xianwang 6 Paths Pagoda, my natal magic treasure. In the future, I have to think of a way to capture the big goblin or obtain the big goblin through other means. Soon, the 17th Yang Meridian was successfully formed. It began to merge with the other Yang Meridian and reach the same level. He also began to form the 17th Yang Meridian. This way, he was even closer to the second transformation. His strength had just increased, and he still needed to absorb more energy. Su Fong began to grab a scarlet, magma-like spirit liquid from the mini heaven and earth immortal pot. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 3 Dharma treasures that were in and out of burning state immediately poured the spirit liquid down from above. When the material spirit liquid touched the Dharma treasures, it burned together with the Dharma treasures. The Dharma treasures kept shaking as they absorbed the essence of the spirit liquid. The spirit liquid also seemed to be liquefied. At this moment, the 3 Dharma treasures turned scarlet red and transparent. Little brother. At this critical moment, baby Snoring's voice suddenly sounded from outside. It's over. No. Su Fong only frowned slightly. He did not forcibly absorb the 3 Dharma treasures that were in the process of upgrading into his body. These were not 3 powerful Tao artifacts. They were just like ordinary Tao artifacts. How could they attract the attention of others when they were so ordinary? Moreover, at such an important moment, he did not want to waste so many Dharma treasures that he had collected with great difficulty. He was not a rich person. Baby Snoring came to the main hall. As soon as he saw Su Fong controlling the 3 Dharma treasures, he saw clearly. You're too reckless. Everyone cultivates a Tao artifact. At most, there are 2. One is for defense, and the other is for attack. You actually cultivated 3 Dharma treasures, and such ordinary ones at that. I'll give you a mid-grade Tao artifact. What do you think? You're just wasting your time. Brother Bao, I appreciate your kindness. But with my cultivation, how can I activate a high-grade Tao artifact? Su Fong was very touched, but he politely refused. Your cultivation method is the worst. Only a disciple with no status or power would cultivate so clumsily. You even brought 3 low-grade Dharma treasures with you during your cultivation. They're already a burden to you. A high-grade Tao artifact can save you a lot of effort. Why don't you understand? I'm used to using these 3 Dharma treasures. I'm not used to using other Dharma treasures. Then I don't care about you. You're strong, and I have face. But if you insist, Brother Bao can't say anything. Brother Bao, why are you looking for me? Just send a servant to pass the message. I'm just here to see how you're doing. I'll be going to Drifting Cloud Lake soon to participate in this beast battle. I've lost badly in the past few battles. This time, you have to give me some ideas so that I can earn a lot of money and show off. Yes. Beast battle, this was something new. He did not know what a beast battle was. Su Fong could only nod. Before Baby Snoring left, he saw that he was having a hard time controlling the Dharma treasures. So he left him a true fire talisman. Not only could it be used to attack, but it could also be used to cultivate Dharma treasures. This was timely help. After Brother Bao left, Su Fong directly crushed the talisman. Indeed, an immortal fire that was more powerful than the illusory fire cloud exploded. It was not that the illusory fire cloud was not powerful enough. It was that Su Fong was too weak and could not display the true power of the illusory fire cloud. In fact, the illusory fire cloud was already extraordinary. It could help Su Fong refine all kinds of materials in a short time and upgrade the 3 Dharma treasures. If he used other fire-type immortal fires, he would not be able to do it. Half a month later, after the spiritual liquid had evaporated, the 3 Dharma treasures had to slowly brew and absorb the essence of the spiritual liquid. He let the 3 Dharma treasures enter the small universe immortal pot. Tens of thousands of big goblin also continued to cultivate in the immortal pot. After a few days, Su Fong and a dozen followers escorted Baby Snoring to Drifting Cloud Lake. Drifting Cloud Lake was still crowded, but most of them were ordinary disciples of the constellation of 9 heavens. The more powerful disciples would also hide their identities. Su Fong finally knew what a beast duel was. In the most spacious area in the center, there were 3 big goblins sealed and controlled. They were considered average big goblin. One of them was Huang, Lu, Huang, Hua, Huang, Huang, Huang. She? The beast duel was a bet. The 3 great Yaos would fight each other to the death, while the spectators could bet on who would win or lose. In the end, only one of the 3 great Yaos would emerge victorious. Whoever won the bet would naturally be the biggest winner here. The hereditary disciples of the family gathered together with some young geniuses and elites. Who would have thought that even the servant disciples would bet in public? The servant disciples could only get a few immortal pills and immortal stones in a year of cultivation. It seemed that everyone had the chance to become rich. Ayo! Ayo! The seal suddenly activated, and the 3 big goblin regained their freedom. Inside the barrier, They stared at each other ferociously and then attacked each other. Which big goblin do you think will win in the end? Baby Snoring floated in midair and whispered to Su Fong. Su Fong had already released his sensing ability. He knew about the big goblin very well. Huang, Lu, Han, Shi, Ling, Li, 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 Huang, Hua, Li, Xiao, Dai. This young master thinks that Huang, Huai, Li, 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 Yu, Li, 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 Toad, Huang, Li, Li, Xiao, Li, 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 Songbao, Li, Wan, Li, Lon, Li, 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 Barium, Li, 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 Huang, Li, 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 Li. That's why the odds are the highest. Huang, Li, Li, Bu, Ping, Li, Xiao, Li, 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 Yi, Li, 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 Huan, Li, Li, Wan, Li, 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 Li is identical to Li, Li, Zhao, Li, 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 Li. Su Fong's eyes suddenly lit up. Brother Bao, let's bet on that scaled big goblin. I want to bet on it too. Hee hee. Let's earn some extra money. All right, I'll listen to you. Baby Snoring pondered for a while, gritted his teeth, and took out a storage ring from a deity in front of him who was controlling the barrier. 1,000,000 low-grade immortal stones. Su Fong also handed over a storage ring. After the deity checked it, he did not expect Baby Snoring to place such a huge bet. Even a follower like Su Fong dared to place 1,000,000 immortal stones. You're too ruthless. Brother Bao suddenly stared at Su Fong. He did not expect Su Fong to take out 1,000,000 immortal stones as a bet. Su Fong snickered. Hee hee, 80%. You'll definitely make a profit. You're really that confident? Baby Snoring's and Su Fong's ears were almost touching. Well, I'm 80% confident. 80%. Baby Snoring suddenly clenched his fists, and his spirits were immediately lifted. He rushed towards the 3 big goblins and cheered along with the deities around him. However, the 3 big goblins within the barrier had become the humans' playthings, toys to make the humans happy. The inside of the barrier was already covered in blood.